What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Touchback Tuesday, right? I was almost said welcome back to week 2, but we are now post week 2.
That's right. Week 2's in the
right?
book.
So we are week 2 recap. Recording here on Tuesday. Normally we'd be releasing our show on Tuesday. However, we had a doubleheader Monday night.
Lots of football to watch, and good football at that, especially as Bills fans, right? We truly enjoyed that one, and we're going to get into it a little bit. But yeah, the other game too, super important game, and Eagles, big. Lots of good football on last night.
Yeah, tons of fun. I mean, this weekend was so surprising. Is the word I want to use. Just teams that win, you didn't expect them to win. Crazy events that happen. The Jets come to mind, beating Cleveland with the onside kick recovery. Just a wild and crazy football weekend. And we are full go now in the NFL after 2 weeks of football. And it's that time of year now we're going to talk about 0-2 starts, right? We basically, if you go 0-2, everyone writes you off for the year, right? So a lot of surprises on that front. Tennessee going 0-2, very surprising. Some surprises going 2-0.
The Giants 2-0, right? Like, wow.
Giants.
I said it when we did our show, the preview show with the NFC East, that the schedule, it looked like they could get off to a 2-0 start and still only win 6 or 8 games this year. But it could mean something there with Dayball taking over and Danny Dimes looking good, and they don't have to be the most impressive team to win. So yeah, 2-0 for the Giants. That's awesome.
I mean, we'll get into that for sure.
Football is exciting and unpredictable, and well, to a point, to an extent, any team can beat any other team any day, which is fun.
Yes.
But this is just absolutely exciting start to the season for sure.
Right. We got some injuries we're going to talk about. Trey Lance, obviously the headline there. What else is surprising is players getting smacked in the face. We'll get into that. We
never heard that one before. Yeah.
We just got a lot to get to. So let's get started here. We got tons of topics to go through. Let's start off with Miami at Baltimore. And really the topic here is Tua and Lamar have huge days. Both of them, right? And I know Tua got the 6 touchdown day, and he's been under scrutiny. So everybody's really on this. All eyes are on Tua, right? Is he good? Is he a franchise guy? Is he bad? And he gets the win, so credit to him. He played an amazing game, brought the team back. They scored 28 points in the fourth quarter. But let's start with Lamar Jackson and having a phenomenal day as well.
Yeah. I mean, he took control in this game early on. Would they have a 28-point lead at the half? 28? Is that what
I think it was 35-14 at one point.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so a huge lead, and that was mainly due to Lamar and his play and what he can do, and we know what he brings to the table. So he certainly did his part. But obviously Miami being able to come back, that tells you that Baltimore's defense really, really did not do well in that second half, especially. Injuries or not, you can't give up that big of a lead. Like, that is just too much, but it doesn't take anything away. Well, it takes the spotlight away, unfortunately, from Lamar and puts it on Tua, who also had an amazing day statistically, and with some of the throws he made to his receivers to
for a while in this game, it was Jalen Waddle, and then it was Rashard Bateman. Then it was Jalen Waddle, and then Rashard Bateman. Right, they went back and forth, and that's really early on in the game that was kind of the storyline, right? These two receivers are having big days.
Yeah.
But then with Tua's 2 interceptions, that was really the difference in the score. They were kind of back and forth, but, Lamar didn't make any mistakes. And Tua had the 2 interceptions early, which give them the big lead, right?
Yeah, I mean, Lamar ends up with 318 yards passing. That's a pretty big day for him, passing with 3 touchdown passes. And he had 119 yards rushing on top of that. So with a rushing touchdown, I mean, 4 touchdowns, 100+ yards rushing, 300+ yards passing. If you look at just that, you're thinking, okay, this is one of the best performances by any quarterback, and they won the game. No doubt.
Right.
But they didn't, because that defense blew such a big lead. And you look at the other quarterback stat line, 469 yards passing, 6 touchdowns. He did throw 2 interceptions. And, he doesn't have the rushing yards that Lamar had too, but still, you look at his receivers days, and that explains how that happens. But yeah, Lamar had the better game in my mind.
Yeah, he looked
Total
mature.
all around game. Yeah.
One of the notes I wrote down is Lamar's under control.
Yep.
It's kind of a different Lamar. He looks poised in the pocket. He's running in the right situations, obviously, is what it looked like in this game. He's making the right reads and making good throws, right? And this all comes from his contract, right? He turned down a 5-year extension worth $250 million, $133 million guaranteed. That would have had him run through 2027.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, he bet on himself by not taking that deal,
right.
and right now
And
that's
that's the
looking like a
scary
damn
thing.
good bet to make because
Right. Betting on
he's
yourself
cashing
is
in.
really the reason it's a bet is because you're risking it, right?
A lot of money. Yeah, you're
He gets
risking a
hurt,
lot
get
of
nothing.
security. Yeah, that's right.
So
So I mean,
I wouldn't do that. I understand why he's doing it. When tons of these quarterbacks are being paid insane amount of money. Now let's look at it here. We got highest paid quarterbacks right now is Aaron Rodgers, and that's on salary, $50.3 million. Russell Wilson next at $49 million per year.
it's nuts.
I mean,
It's crazy. I mean, you look at Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, and they're like 8 and 9 on the list now, or something
right.
crazy. 6,
Yeah,
or maybe
5
it's
and
7 and
6.
8, 5
They're
and 6. Yeah, they're nuts. That's
after Deshaun Watson at $46 million. Deshaun Watson's fourth after Kyler Murray.
crazy.
$46 million. And if I'm Lamar, I'm looking at that going, well, I'm better than that guy. That guy hasn't played in a year. Kyler Murray, I'm better than that guy. I won an MVP. Russell Wilson, I'm better. I mean, the guy's
currently
got
better
years,
than that guy. Yeah,
but he's in the. I'm in the prime of my career, so I understand why he's betting on himself. But reports also say that the disconnect is on guaranteed money. They're giving him $133 million guaranteed. That would be 7th on the list of most guaranteed money.
Ooh, yeah. So I mean, I think he has a good gripe here and not taking that offer. So he's only cashing it in day by day, and they're not continuing talks during the season, as far as I know. So it's not going to happen until the off season again, and that means if he stays healthy and continues this level of play, this MVP type play, without a doubt, that's only going to mean that Baltimore is paying more and more and more to retain
and
his
really
services.
the side story on this topic is that Deshaun Watson really gets a ridiculous amount of money at $230 million guaranteed, and almost you can almost say how irresponsible that was from Brown's leadership, because now it's causing lots of problems with other teams, right? Kyler Murray gets his, he got $189.5 million guaranteed. The next closest is 165, and they offered Lamar 133. So you can see that's $100 million difference in guaranteed money. And the guy's an MVP.
Yep.
And he's in the prime of his career, and he's certainly a franchise type quarterback on and off the field.
Yeah, I think that, again, the leverage is still all his at this point. The team is going to have to pay him what he wants. And we've seen situations with these other quarterbacks. I brought up Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen, but they got their deals done because the team said, okay, we'll give you the biggest contract or the most guaranteed money right now. And then others broke that. And by waiting, the Ravens have backed themselves in a corner where the precedent is now, when you have a quarterback who's that damn good and is that much of a franchise player, you have to pay him the most.
It's a blank check.
I mean, you're going to go above Aaron Rodgers at $50 million guaranteed. That's nuts. So, I mean, but he could ask for that, and that is now the standard. So it's got to land somewhere. And I don't think Lamar is going anywhere. I don't think he's going to end up leaving Baltimore. They're not going to let him go. So they've got to work this out for sure.
Well, Jason La Canforia, am I saying that right? La Canforia.
I think so.
Jason La Canforia on Fox Sports Radio. I think Lamar Jackson is going to get traded before the draft next year.
Wow.
This guy, he's we've heard his name a lot around the NFL.
Yeah.
He's an inside guy, lots of information. Really, I think he's a hitman, if you will, right? The team says, hey, we need leverage in our contract negotiations. Can you put out a report? But really, from Jason's perspective, it's, I'm an inside guy that I just put out what they tell me, even though I'm being used.
Sure.
Yeah, so a lot to
Then trade
unpack
him.
there.
That would still be a huge mistake for Baltimore.
Oh my god, and that's what I put
Who's
on the
going to
Hoof
pay him?
Twitter.
Yeah.
Was that would be an arrogant mistake at this point because these guys get blank checks.
Yeah, and this is what
Clearly.
you're looking for. You don't come across a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, and let them play for you for 4 years and walk away.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson is that guy. You keep him for his career until he's old and decrepit, and then you're like, okay, you get one more shot, and that's it, right? But these type of franchise players are what you look at. This is what you search for when you're in the draft looking for a quarterback. I can't imagine that they would trade him no matter what the cost is.
We'll save that conversation for another day. Is why did the Browns pass on Lamar in the first place? Why did the Jets pass on Lamar Jackson? Why did the Cardinals pass on Lamar Jackson? I mean, that's we'll talk about that another day. But
the Bills got Josh Allen. But they passed on Lamar too, and Lamar certainly got off to a better start.
And at the time, like you knew Lamar was good. No one knew Josh Allen was that good.
Nope.
Yeah. And really, Lamar, he's everything is advertised. And after a game like that, it's fun to watch because there is a lot of pressure on him, right? And he's kind of sticking it to the man.
Meanwhile, we didn't even talk much about Tua, who actually won the game, right? Again, I think that the spotlight was taken off of Lamar Jackson because they lost this game, and the talk is about the defense when he had the numbers we said. But Tua, man, wow. Talk about putting a stamp on the question of, are you the franchise guy or can you do it, right? I still have questions about his top-level talent ability, but his ability to lead this type of comeback, I mean, I was impressed. I was blown away that he could do this. The throws he made to open receivers, but he found those guys deep, short, middle, wherever it was. He made those passes when he needed to most. He didn't let the mistakes or the big lead get to him. Those are the type of mental things that you look for in a quarterback that you want to have long-term and the franchise type players. And Tua said, yeah, I can do that. Watch. And he proved it.
Yeah.
So you got to give him the respect there. The numbers are just crazy because they were down by so much. So you got to do what you got to do at that point. You're not running the ball.
Sure.
You're passing a lot. But he was able to turn it around. And a lot of that is help from the wide receivers. When you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they're just going to help each other out.
These guys are amazing players.
Really but I give Tua the credit because he found those guys on the deep passes, on the short passes, on the middle routes, and he let them make plays, and he, did his part. So Tua putting his stamp on this game and saying, I am the guy. No more questions about can I do it, because I just showed you I can.
Right. And I've heard the Drew Brees comparisons in the past, and it's really kind of hard to compare because he's a left-handed guy. But and I'm not saying he is Drew Brees, and I really don't like comparisons because every quarterback's their own. But Tua does play that style, and he's really, really good at that style of play. The short, quick release, almost Elvin Kamara comes to mind. Those type of plays, right?
Yeah.
The quick dump offs, and man, Jalen Waddle is just
he's a beast.
God, he's
my
good.
Favorite receiver from that draft, not Chase, but Waddle. I had him at number 1 for me.
Right. Add Tyreek Hill. I mean,
yeah.
But Tyreek Hill had 13 targets. Jalen Waddle 19. Both had 11 receptions.
190 and 171 yards. That's just absolutely insane. That's a quarterback number. That's just crazy.
And it's like, is this the secret weapon? Is this did they roll out some stuff they've been working on? It seems like early in this game they didn't really use them a lot. I mean, Jalen Waddle got a lot of targets and receptions early on, but Tyreek Hill was pretty quiet. And then all of a sudden it just all came out at once, right? So,
and Mike McDaniel, right, working his magic. I mean, as a head coach, he's 2-0 as a rookie head coach now, and he's an offensive wizard, right? That's supposed to be his thing. Well, when you're down 28 points in the fourth quarter and you get a comeback win, you're officially an offensive wizard.
And
like,
he's one of those guys that inherited a good roster, and that's rare. Usually when you fire the coach, you had a bad year and it's a bad roster. But I mean, him and we talked about the Vikings too. Both of those guys inherited good rosters, so you are expected to win in these scenarios, and he's pulling it off. Certainly, we both picked Baltimore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they surprised me, and I'm happy for them, honestly, because they've been good.
I picked Baltimore to win and the points to Miami. I figured it would be close. But I thought the score would be swapped and not nearly this high, maybe
Right,
like
and it's
31-28 or something.
The Patriots game, the Dolphins didn't really play that great on offense. It's really New England played worse.
Yeah.
You know, they made the mistake, the defensive
Right.
touchdown,
It
the
was
fumble
ugly.
near the end zone. That was really the difference in the game. But anyways, is it too soon for Tua hype? I mean, here we go. Couple tweets from around. Harold says he and Hurts run the league now.
Run the
meaning
league.
Jalen Hurts. Tua and Jalen Hurts run the league. Is this
wow
too soon, or are we still?
wow.
Is he in that conversation? I mean, Hurts had a great night as well.
Way too soon. Way too soon. Hurts had a great night. Good for Hurts. Yeah, he's got a great offense too. It's more like Tua and Hurts prove that the other guy conversation needs to end. Right? There, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. They both have staked their claim and said, we're supposed to be the fill-ins who maybe aren't good enough, and maybe our another quarterback would help this very good roster do better than we are. But both have staked their claim and said, I'm the starting quarterback of this team because I deserve to be and because I'm going to be. And, I'm going to be here forever. But look at the leagues that just the AFC East alone. You're telling me that Mahomes, right? Mahomes or Josh Allen, Tua's got to get above Josh Allen before he can even compete with Mahomes, and that's not happening. So there's those two alone. The NFC, I mean, you're still talking about Aaron Rodgers. Like, what?
Right?
Are you kidding? I mean, even though he's got less receivers to work with and his stats aren't crazy anymore so far this season, but really, you're telling me he's better? Hurts is better than Aaron Rodgers in the NFC. Tom Brady in the NFC.
Aaron Rodgers is older though. It's like the next
so
generation.
is Tom Brady. Yes, yes, but even young quarterbacks.
There is an argument there because you talk about Stafford, Brady, Aaron Rodgers. In 5 years, these guys are all gone. Who's the next quarterbacks in there?
The NFC? Maybe. So maybe Hurts is running the NFC, but he ain't running the league. That's Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes.
Sure.
All those guys are way more than Tua and
Jay Jeffries commenting on a picture of Tua by PFF says, "Not Mahomes, really. I told you all."
Yeah,
I mean, I get it. You get those blinders on. This is our guy. We've been waiting for a quarterback for all these years. But folks, it's week 2 here, and I got it. He's funny. On the way. But let's get to the playoffs first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One more here from Tony Cobb. People don't understand. Baltimore is one of the best secondaries in the league. The thing is, they have to cover 2 of the fastest motherfuckers in the league, and they're exhausted at the end of the quarter. This is going to keep happening throughout the year until one of them gets injured.
Ooh.
Maybe true. I think that's, Tyreek Hill certainly wears down secondaries because that dude just never stops. So he's talking about the receivers more than Tua. Tua's the beneficiary.
Exactly.
But that's a decent argument because these 2 guys, they are super fast. You have to run full speed to cover them deep.
Certainly, and they will wear out
max speed. You know what I mean?
And I think it takes a good cornerback safety tandem to work well together to shut that down. And in week 3 here, they have the Bills coming up. We're going to do that in our preview episode, but I think that's going to be a good test for them. Even though the Bills might have 2 rookie cornerbacks, it's that safety duo that kind of helps over the top with, 2 speedsters like that. And that'll be the true test of which Miami is it. The Miami from week 1 who only scored 2 touchdowns against a team they're better than, or the Miami in week 2 who came this back and scored 42 points and blew up on offense. So, I mean, we'll end up seeing. They'll be put to the test. And it's not just next game either. They got to prove that all year to really make it happen. And although the speed is the case, Baltimore's defense had injuries, a couple of injuries now. And that has really, really hurt their team. And you could see that just guys were blowing coverage the whole game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
The whole game in the fourth quarter, the whole fourth quarter. And really, it did not look like the Baltimore defense that we've come to know. So yes, it's the speed. Yes, that does help wearing them down. But the injury combination and the fact that your defense kind of had the gas taken out of it, right? Like the air was taken out of them and they just couldn't make a play at all. I mean, Tua lit them up in the fourth quarter and scored 3 touchdowns, all of which lasted less than 2 minutes for their drives. That's nuts.
Yeah, it's definitely nuts, and great game, and hats off to both those quarterbacks. Let's move on to the next one here. We're not going in order. This is 425. We're just going to move around here. We got Arizona 29 at the Las Vegas Raiders 23. This was a great game as well. Comes down to overtime. Brian Murphy for the Cardinals knocks the ball out of Hunter Renfro's hands for a fumble and returns it for a touchdown in overtime.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Kyler Murray brings them back. He completely played his ass off. Gets slapped in the face by a fan. He's celebrating. Watch the video real quick. Just quick search. Kyler Murray slapped in the face by fan. It's everywhere. It's even in slow motion. But yeah, he's hyped. He's going to the crowd. He's hugging the crowd. And all of a sudden, just a random hand comes up and smacks him in the face. And you know how it is. Like, you're having a good time, and all of a sudden you get hit in the nose.
Yeah.
Things change quickly. It's not fun anymore, right? Get real serious
definitely not cool. I've never seen anything like that in the NFL. I mean, there's one thing to dive into the stands when you still got your helmet and your stuff on and you're just celebrating with fans and, one guy punches your helmet, but you got your gear on, you're protected and you're mostly within your own fans. Even if somebody throws something at you or whatever, you're putting yourself at risk. But at the end of the game, to go up to fans and celebrate, I don't care what stadium you're in or what it is, you just had an overtime win. You're going to go celebrate with the people who are there to support you, as you should, right? As the fans deserve. So to have somebody, suckers punch him or slap him after the game, in the stands, like, that's just not okay. I've definitely never seen anything like that happen. And it shouldn't happen. And the NFL is investigating it and looking into charges and all that. So it's not a good thing to have happen, but
no, don't be slapping players, man. Come on. It's at the end of the day, it's a game.
Yeah.
And these guys are incredible athletes, and you should respect each and every one of them, because it is so difficult to get where they are and to compete at a high level, which we love so much. Like, I don't want my star player that I like to go out there and half-ass anything. You know what I mean? So, like, to smack a player in the face is just completely ridiculous to me. Anyway, Kyler Murray, great day.
Awesome.
Throws the ball 49 times, brings his team back. Zach Ertz looks like a good player for them. Marquise Brown, some additions. Both get 11 targets. I think they still are missing D-Hop. They kind of look lost early.
Yep.
Just they don't really know who to go to. It's kind of maybe an identity problem. But I did see Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, we saw some emotion from him in this game. The guy doesn't really show a lot of emotion, but man, I've never seen his eyes so big in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I think
2-point conversion and things like that.
I honestly think that this was a good game for Kyler to show that he can still lead this team, because without D-Hop, I agree that last week and really at the start of this game, maybe even through the first 3 quarters of this game, you kind of thought the same thing, that like, okay, D-Hop's clearly the leader on this team and why they're good. And without him, they're just mediocre, right?
Like, who are we?
And they don't know their identity. But Kyler kind of said, okay, I need to step up and I need to be that guy. And he had the rushing touchdown in this game toward the end in the fourth quarter. That, to me, was one of those plays that you're like, yes, that's what you need to energize and say, I am the guy. Nobody's open. I'm trying. It was like a 15-second play, and he ran it into the end zone finally for the touchdown. It was a great play by him to keep, make a play out of nothing, or when everybody's in coverage and when the defense has pretty much done their job. He put it in his hands and he made it happen. And he made the throws he had to make. And like you said, a couple of guys had big days. And so it at least gives you belief that, okay, Kyler Murray can keep this team on track until D-Hop comes back, and then they could make that next step that they are going to need to compete in the NFC.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think they scored 29-23. Let me find it real quick. Okay, here we go. Cardinals, they scored 16 points in the fourth quarter and 6 in overtime, 24 unanswered to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, one's the fumble return for a touchdown. But yeah, great game by them. How about the Raiders, though?
Yeah, opposite storyline here, right? Derek Carr, what did he have? He had 250 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, but very mediocre play, right? They couldn't get the big play to punch it out to end the game. Josh Jacobs only 19 carries, only 69 yards. That's just not good enough when you're pounding the rock. Sure, maybe that's what you want to do, but you got to put up more stats than a 3.6 yard average, and Devontae Adams, sure, he's going to be the focal point of the defense, right? They're going to double cover him and everything. But when you have a receiver who's that elite, you got to get stats. You can't just have 2 catches and say, okay, that's a good game, or I did what I had to do, and ultimately it's the opposite storyline. Again, you've gotten Devontae Adams. You should have been improved. And to me, Carr has just looked like what we've come to know Carr as, kind of mediocre, kind of like, okay, he has a good game, a bad game, a terrible game. Yeah, and if you're going to compete, especially in the competitive AFC, that's not going to help you.
Yeah, Derek Carr, 25 of 39, 252 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Hunter Renfrow is the highest targeted receiver with 7 receptions. Darren Waller, 8 targets, 6 receptions. Devontae Adams, only 2 receptions in this game after 7 targets for 12 yards. Did have a touchdown, though.
Yes, he did have a touchdown, but again, that was, when a comfortable touchdown after you have a lead, it's not like it was a decisive go-ahead touchdown pass, from Carr. It brings a lot of worry for me about this Raiders team and what they're going to get done this year, because they're in such a competitive division, because, the competition's only going to get harder from here. You're already 0-2. You're backed against the wall.
Right. New head coach. Like, we all know Josh McDaniels. We know his history, right? Denver didn't work out so good. This guy took Tim Tebow with the 22nd overall pick. There's some rumors of him cheating, and then, they try to do it the real way, and it didn't work out that well. So that's kind of the sour taste that Josh McDaniels leaves. Now and then he turns down Indianapolis, which I almost forgot about.
Mm-hmm.
Right, which is another sour taste. So now he's back in the head coaching seat, and 0-2, another sour taste. So, like, are they in trouble here after starting 0-2?
Yes. Like, that's, you don't want to overstate the importance of the first 2 weeks of the season. But when you start getting into the nitty-gritty of, okay, so we started 0-2, we just need to make up for it. Well, you're going to make up for it by playing the Broncos. Okay, maybe, but they're a competitive team. The Chiefs, the Chargers. Okay, those are the teams in front of you now in this division. And it doesn't get any easier. Their schedule doesn't have a point where you can say, okay, they're going to coast for these few games and really hit their stride. And if anything, your morale and your momentum is heading in the wrong direction right now. So they need to get it together really fast and kind of come out and make a statement somewhere, so that people start believing in them again, but more importantly, so they start believing in themselves, right? We got Devontae Adams. We're going to be so good this year, and you're 0-2. That's not good enough, and there has to be concern there on everybody's point of view. The coach, the quarterback, the team, the defense, whatever you want to say, everybody needs to step it up and prove we're here to compete. Again, the AFC does not get any easier. The NFC, there's a little more wiggle room. The AFC is really tough this year, and everybody knows it, including this team. So if they're saying, if we can't even win one of our first 2 games, how are we going to compete for a wild card against all of the other teams that are doing well? When in the AFC East, Bills and Miami, as we've talked about, Bills probably the best team in the NFL right now. Miami just blew it up and looked really good. One of those teams is going to end up being a wild card team, and you gotta be up next to them, right?
Right.
It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough for these Raiders.
Yeah. Last little bit on this is it's 0-2 season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every year after week 2, we start looking around going, who's 0-2? Okay, those teams aren't going to make the playoffs. They're already eliminated. Since the merger in 1970, there's been 400 teams. Only 38 have made the postseason after starting 0-2. 9.5%.
And I think it's with the expanded playoffs the last 2 years now. That's team has started 0-2 and made the playoffs.
Point there.
I believe I think I heard that on ESPN actually, and so that's a pretty big deal. Now you have a team like this who started 0-2. Can they come back and make the playoffs? We saw them back in with that wild card last year a little bit, and end up with that last spot. this year it's not going to be as easy.
I mean, I'm almost more. I keep thinking the Colts are 0-2, but anyway, like a team in that division, like the AFC South, has a better chance than obviously the Raiders, who still has to play the Chiefs, still has to play the Chargers. I mean, it's just their division's tough. It's going to be tough to crawl out of the 0-2 start, which it sounds really funny when you say it, but that is a reality of the NFL. It is tough to crawl out of that.
And when you're looking at a team like the Colts, that tie could come into play at the end of the season. And because you're 0-2 and they're 0-1-1, they've got the edge on you already. So that's to come down to the end of the season. You're going to wish you won one of these games and break that tie.
Right. So let's move on to the next game here. We spent a lot of time on that one. Bucks 20, New Orleans Saints 10, down in New Orleans. And it's the first time Brady's won down there. The Bucks have actually been really good against the Tampa Bay at home.
Yes.
And this is just, the football wasn't great, I don't think, on both sides. Jameis Winston's back to be an interception. Jameis Winston, hate to see it. Brady's quarterback rating was only 79. So a really tough game, tough day. And we had, frustration, which led to the Brady brawl.
The Brady brawl.
Mike Evans gets suspended one game. Well, I don't know if did you watch the video on this?
I didn't see the whole thing. No, just why they were suspended, the punches thrown and all that.
Yeah, watch the video and really, like, I can't remember what happened, but Brady goes down the field, starts yelling at the ref, right? And then Marshawn Lattimore comes over and starts mouthing off to Brady. Right. So then Brady mouths off to Marshawn.
That I saw. Yes.
And then Fournette kind of does a little shove thing. And all of a sudden, Mike Evans just comes out of nowhere and starts body slamming people.
Yeah, and it's Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore that have had beef in the past.
Right.
Those two going head-to-head has always, been an intense matchup, to say the least. These two teams hate each other, without a doubt. Especially Tampa hates New Orleans because they beat them the last 4 games with Tom Brady. So there's a lot of animosity there.
But it's funny, too, because there's, like, so much chaos going on, and no one touches Brady. He can walk right through, like he's Jesus, he can walk right through the pile, and no one even thinks to touch the guy. That had me going, because it's like, if you read the lips of Brady, he says, "Fuck you, bitch," to your face, and no one does a thing. Marshawn pushes Fournette. So, like, that's my conclusion, that quarterbacks aren't real football players.
Yeah, they somehow evade all of this fighting in there. I mean, yeah, I guess because you get to hit them on the field, maybe. I don't know. It's tough. But this whole game, right? It was 3-3 going into the fourth quarter. So, though I didn't get to watch a lot of this game, obviously, but it was, I'm looking at the score. I'm like, man, this is an intense matchup. But 3-3, I thought it was going to be higher scoring, back and forth affair. No, it was pretty boring game until that fourth quarter. And, say what you want about the fights that broke out and what resulted from it. But, in the fourth quarter, Tampa gets a touchdown, a field goal, and a touchdown to take the lead. And then New Orleans is trying to claw their way back. They get a late touchdown, but it isn't enough. And the score says it all, 20-10. Mostly scored in that fourth quarter, all but 6 points scored in that fourth quarter. Yeah, so I did pick the Bucks. I did think the Bucks were the better team. I think Tom Brady now is 4-4 in his career against New Orleans, which is, an even record versus a losing record. So I'm sure he feels good about that. Although they do have one more matchup. So, yeah,
so
exactly.
Now it's like Miami and New Orleans. They're both the only teams he has a losing record against.
Miami's one?
I think Miami's one, right?
No, that can't be right.
All right, Googling it.
In the division, you got to.
Well, I
would be surprised at that one.
I'm looking it up.
Yeah. So, I think I don't think he has that. But, yeah, I think it was one of the only teams he had a losing record against. And now he's 4-4. Yeah.
Oh, maybe it was like him on the road in Miami or something like that. But
that could be.
Tom Brady's record versus the Dolphins in his career is 24-12.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew. I'm like, there's no way. They dominated the division for years. So, there's no way. Yeah. Anyway, but so there's a lot of rivalry there. There's a lot of tension there. I think the Lattimore being tossed out of the game after the fight had an impact on this game, because it was him who brought that defensive prowess to the New Orleans Saints against this heavily pass offense with two great receivers, obviously one of them being out right now, but Mike Evans getting into it here. Still, yeah, I mean, I think that really was the deciding factor to push Tampa Bay over the edge and make New Orleans take a step back on defense.
Right. And really, Tampa Bay's up, throughout the game, really. And then the fourth quarter, we get the interceptions from the Saints, 3 in a row, 3 different drives, then a touchdown, then a fumble, and then a turnover on down. So it's like, just kind of imploding there from the Saints. But really, they should have probably won this one. I think they're the better team all day. They Bucks scored 17 in the fourth quarter, kind of turns things around, right?
Yeah, huge comeback for them.
Yeah, so let's lead into Jameis Winston. Here we go. We were hyping him up last week.
Yep.
And now we have the 3 interception game that we kind of been waiting for. And what's the contingency plan if he starts to suck really bad? Because the Saints have a decent roster, right? Michael Thomas is back. Defense looks really good. Kamara's out, but I think
Kamara didn't play
back.
In this one. He'll be back,
right.
Probably. Nothing too
serious.
He's
coming back pretty soon. But if we see old Jameis, that style of, every touchdown I throw an interception to match it, do you go to Andy Dalton? When do you make that decision, you think?
I don't think you can at this point. Their problem is more the cap situation, how much punting they've done down the road of cap, how much cap manipulation they've done. They're invested in Jameis Winston at the quarterback position. And if he's good Jameis Winston, they're going to win games. And when he's bad Jameis Winston, they're going to lose games. And that's the fate of their entire season. It's the fate of their entire season.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
If he throws 3 interceptions, yeah, right. Yeah. It's quarterback play good, team win. Quarterback play bad,
weird concept.
Yes, right. Like it sounds like the basics of football, but in this case, it really does depend because his range is too big, right? If you had somebody, I always pick on Mac Jones, but to me, Mac Jones doesn't have a high ceiling, doesn't have a high floor, or doesn't have a low floor. So he's got this narrow range of good, right? He's good. He's never great. He's not terrible. He's good. And if you're a team that needs good, like the Patriots are, that bodes well for you. Jameis Winston has a high ceiling and a very low floor. So it's this wide range of which Jameis are you going to get? And we saw the good last week. We see a little bit of the bad creep in here. And it's unfortunate because he needs to, in order to make that criticism go away, he needs to put together a string of good games.
Right.
And then they'll say, okay, 1 3 interception game by a quarterback normally would not change the narrative of that quarterback. It's not because, he threw 3 interceptions, he's a bad quarterback all of a sudden. No, you let the record speak for itself. It's only because he had that infamous season a few years ago of 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions.
Right.
That leaves a bad taste in people's
cost
mouths.
him his job, really. That year cost him his job in Tampa. And it's just weird as a coach, because we want to see that string of good games. So let's say we give him 3. In your head, I want to see 3 more games from him. But then what if they're all bad? What if you see 2 more bad games? I think we could see Andy Dalton in where are we at now? So week 4 is the earliest.
Wow, you really think so? If they have 2 more bad games, they're going to go to 2 more bad
games. What I think you have to, right?
Again, I think they're stuck with Jameis Winston. So no is my answer.
Well, no. I think that's why you have Andy Dalton on the bench. He's one of the better backups in the league.
True.
They bring him in for that reason.
Yes, but Andy Dalton doesn't give you a high ceiling either.
But so that's a good thing. You know what I mean? Like, don't turn the ball over and we might
totally change. Yeah, I guess you could totally change the approach and say, okay, Kamara's back and healthy and we're going to rely on that and, be the even pace team and not the one that, Jameis can throw the ball deep and he can throw it deep and make plays, and he has legs that can make plays and Andy Dalton doesn't. So, I mean, it's a total game change plan at that point. And although he is kind of a protection, I think it's going to take more than just a couple bad games from Jameis to go to Dalton.
Okay, so you think maybe
because you can't go back really. You can't say, now Andy Dalton's our quarterback for 2 days. Oh, now he looks really bad. Oh, let's go back to Jameis. Too late. Season's over.
Thinking maybe like week 8 or something like that would be better.
Correct. Yeah, way later in the season when you're like, okay, Jameis isn't getting it done, and now we're done with Jameis, and Andy's the guy. And if Andy Dalton's just as bad, guess what? Too bad, season's over, right? But we're going with Andy at that point. So that's why I think they're stuck with him for a while.
And really, like, it's kind of a bummer that Taysom Hill's a tight end, right? Because you could pull him in. But I think once you go that position, can he play quarterback? I guess you could.
Yeah, I mean, they could put him under center. The tight end can snap the ball, I guess.
But I think you have to have at least one quarterback on the roster, right? So if Andy Dalton's I don't know how that would work, but it's just kind of interesting.
Yeah, it would be, but they seem to have moved away from that. I'm sure they can use it in trick plays every once in a while with Taysom Hill being able to throw the ball. But yeah, it's Andy or Jameis at this point.
Yeah, I think Denver played a receiver at quarterback last year, so it can be done. Anyway, let's move on to the next game here. The New York Jets, game winner.
Oh,
at Cleveland. Jets 31, Cleveland 30, 1 p.m. game. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Flacco back to 2010 form.
Joe Flacco. Joe freaking
After
Flacco.
Game winner. And how good is Garrett Wilson? Woof. That kid looks
he caught everything. Yeah. I mean, he was catching balls left and right, left for an injury, came right back, caught more balls on the sidelines. I mean, I watched the majority of this game, almost all of this game, because it was the one on local TV here. And it, wow. Yeah. Joe Flacco deserves all of the credit here. The Browns were up by 13. I mean, his wide receiver, yes, Garrett Wilson does. Don't get me wrong. But the Browns, total meltdown and collapse and just fell asleep. They literally fell asleep. I saw them snoozing on the field. Like, this is stupid. You had a 13-point lead with like 2 minutes left. You missed an extra point. It should have been a 14-point lead. You missed the extra point, but you're like, who cares? We're up 13.
Right.
You fall asleep. The only thing you can't do is give up a big play. And you totally just sit down on defense and let the guy blow past you. And Joe Flacco said, you know what? I know what I'm doing in this league. I'm a veteran. Don't sit here and treat me like I'm some rookie or I'm some quarterback of a band. I'm Joe Flacco. I've won a Super Bowl. You're going to tell me I don't know what I'm doing? And Joe Flacco threw the most accurate passes I've seen him throw in 5 years, I think.
Yeah.
And
it makes sense because he hasn't won a game.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I think he took it personally and was like, this team thinks we're just going to lay down now because we're down by two scores. Yeah. Like, no, we're going for it, baby. And he threw it, and it was good on the Jets because they did not give up. Right. And they did not let it get to him. And the Browns sat right down, and then they scored quickly. And obviously that means onside kick. Same thing. Like, everybody in the world knows an onside kick is coming. Cleveland somehow botches it. So the Jets get it back and still playing defense.
The series of events is Corey Davis touchdown, which was wide open, blown coverage.
Oh, no coverage. Totally not even blown. He sat down.
And I didn't look at it in detail, but I know Denzel Ward was on that side, which is a rare miss by him. I don't know if it was a breakdown in zone, miscommunication, but
right. I think it was more man to man call, right? The setup on defense was completely wrong. You can't.
There's no way Denzel Ward lets him get that wide open if it's man to man, or his responsibility. Anyway, Corey Davis touchdown, onside kick. They get it. The Jets get it, right? Which is a weird way to kick the ball too. If you haven't seen it, the kicker kind of puts the ball horizontally on the field, fakes the kick right, and actually kicks it left.
They still have the guys lined up though.
Yeah, it works. And the odds of getting that's low. And then we have the Garrett Wilson touchdown.
Oh, my gosh.
So now the Jets go ahead. They kick the extra point. They're up 31-30. And then
this was
Jacoby Brissett makes a nice run. It goes out of bounds, and they have a chance. You have 12 seconds. If you get a 10-yard play, you're probably in field goal range. And give your guy a chance, right? Throws a pick.
Yep. But that wasn't even it was really the Jets' drive to score the touchdown to go ahead. Or tie it, really. The extra point made it go ahead. But the winning touchdown, if you will, by the Jets, that was a drive. Now think of this. You're losing the game now still. You just recover the onside kick. You have the momentum. And what did they do? They came out calm, cool, and collected. And again, Joe Flacco, I put a lot of it on his shoulders for this win because he just went out there and said, again, I'm a veteran quarterback. I've been here before. I've done this before. We're good. And he didn't rush. He didn't freak out. He wasn't throwing quick passes. They marched down. They did what they had to do. They score the touchdown and say, now there's no time left, so good luck. And the Browns had to be in panic mode. And yes, he threw an
Oh
interception.
my God.
They could have gotten in field goal range, but that would have been a reach too at that point. It was bad that he threw the interception. But Joe Flacco won this game, and the Browns defense blew it big time. Big time. And I'm mad about it because I had the Browns -6 as one of my picks of the week. And I was just like, oh, they're up by 13. This is great. Yeah, they should totally win now. And Joe Flacco deserved to win. I was rooting for the Jets by the end of this because he just said, all right, go ahead. Quit on yourself, defense, because I'm going to eat you up with these guys I got on the field.
That's Flacco's first win as a Jet in 6 starts.
Yes.
Goes back 2 years ago. So he's started a few games each year and lost all of them. So good on him. This is why he's being, celebrated in the locker room. Make sure you check out that clip. That was a great one. This is why he's so excited about this win in week 2. But definitely big effort by the Jets, but really shouldn't have won the game, right? This is on Cleveland, in my opinion. Which brings me to the next topic here. Will this Browns loss linger into the next week? Because this was a complete breakdown on all phases. Offense, defense, and special teams all made mistakes and cost them the game. I mean, what happened here?
Yeah. Mentally, right? I mean, how can you recover from such a mental breakdown? And your coaches, I mean, the players have got to be doubting the coaches for their calls. The offense is mad at the defense because they blew it really. And there's a lot of finger pointing going on in this locker room right now. Even if it's not physical, it's mental, right? I don't care what they say out in the press. In their heads, they're thinking, God, we really blew that. Can I trust this not to happen next time? How can I prevent this from not happening this next time? That would be a good thing. And you say linger into next week. It's now. It's Thursday. They play a quick game here. The only thing that works in the Browns' favor is that they're playing their division rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who also bumped into themselves onto the field.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, you got two, trains that just came off the track trying to run into each other right now and they're asking me which one's going to win. The only thing I can guarantee in that game is that there's going to be players on the field and they're going to run into each other. The score might be 0-0 and it's a tie game after overtime.
And not to mention Cincinnati's 0-2. Now that division doesn't look all that good all of a sudden.
Yeah, so it's tough. I mean, there are things going in the Browns' favor. I still like their roster, right? I said it during the game. I put out a tweet that's Nick Chubb. You give the ball to Nick Chubb, and guess what happens? You start winning and taking over the game and going ahead by a lot. And then you let them come back and you start throwing the ball and it doesn't work out for you. And you have to make bigger plays and it doesn't work out for you. Pound the rock with Nick Chubb and win games. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, and they're really just holding out till Deshaun Watson gets back. We'll see how that turns out, but that is going to be interesting to watch. A guy who hasn't played football in a long time, does he make the same mistake that Jacoby Brissett made? But again, breakdown on not just the quarterback, but all phases of the team. That's going to hurt. I think that lingers into next week and more, honestly.
It's going to. There's got to be a lot of doubt going on in that locker room.
Yeah. So hopefully it's a bounce back league though, folks. So we'll see.
But I will say in the Steelers, we haven't talked about that game yet, but the Steelers, I trust their coach to have them ready for the next game. We're not sure what's going to happen with this Browns.
Yeah, this one puts a lot of pressure on the coaching staff. We'll see what Kevin Stefanski's game plan is. That's kind of here in week 2, that's kind of a conversation throughout the day, right? We're going to talk about the Titans. A lot of pressure on their coaching staff. A lot of pressure on the Bengals all of a sudden. And the next game we're about to talk about right now, the Carolina at the New York Giants. Carolina now 0-2. Carolina 16, the Giants 19. Giants 2-0, by the way.
Yes, that's the bigger story.
Big one. Bigger story. We'll get to that one next. Let's start with the Carolina Panthers. 0-2. And I know I hyped them up. I like their roster.
Told you.
But Matt Rule,
the
lowest winning percentage. And this, I don't think it's just because of this game. He's had the lowest winning percentage of any Panthers coach ever.
Really? Is it that bad? Wow.
Well, they're kind of a new franchise. They only had like 5 coaches, but he's about 300. Next highest is 333, who had 16 wins total. Matt Rule's only at 10 here. So do we see a coaching problem is what I'm boiling down to.
Yes, and a decision maker problem, right? You brought in Baker Mayfield, right? To me, that was a mistake already. I mean, I know you got him cheap and whatever, and you already had a quarterback in Sam Darnold. He got hurt, right? But only after Baker won the job.
Well, he wasn't playing
So
well either.
I know he wasn't, but you already had somebody who could run this offense that way. You brought in another guy, the same exact guy who is well overpaid to do the same exact thing. He didn't get it done in week 1. We talked about that. Here it is week 2. And instead of doing what you're good at, again, I just talked about Nick Chubb. In this case, it's Christian McCaffrey. How about you pound the rock with Christian McCaffrey, the guy who is an MVP playmaker? How about you get the ball to Christian McCaffrey on short screen plays more, right? Use your star player. The more you rely on Baker Mayfield, the more you're going to lose games. Baker Mayfield is a friggin' loser. He's a friggin' loser. That's not me saying that. That's not my opinion. It's fact. He's not going to win you games. Stop making him be the reason you lose. You're in games. You rely on him. You're saying we want to lose. You know what? We want to lose. Let's let Baker throw the ball more. That's not working. And Matt Rule now Matt Rule's got bigger problems because you like this roster. I told you they were going to finish last and said I don't think they're getting 6 wins. But
there's just a lot of first round talent on the roster. Doesn't always boil into
where's that defense?
Right. Doesn't always boil into wins. But man, this is a good roster to have, right?
Yes, and their receivers aren't bad either. I mean, you're talking about DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and McCaffrey too as a receiver. They have guys there. It's not about the talent. It's about what the decision you made to bring in somebody on the offense like Baker instead of letting a draft pick do it or, finding a younger guy who hasn't been given a chance yet. You invested a ridiculous amount of money. You're paying 2 starters, neither of which is playing or playing well. And now you're backed yourself into this corner and you got to eat what you're given, right? What you chose. They picked this. They put themselves in this situation.
It seems a little conservative here. Only 14 completions for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
You run Christian McCaffrey 15 times. And he had a good day, right? 6.8 yards per carry.
Sure.
102 yards on the ground.
The rock. He's Christian friggin' McCaffrey.
But yeah, I think you got to use him more out of the backfield. Only 5 targets, and that helps Baker as well. I just don't know how to fix them. It's just too and you're conservative. But then if you get too aggressive, and passing a lot or anything like that, it could.
This is,
implode.
And you weren't facing an elite defense. You're facing the Giants, right? I mean, yeah, they're 2-0, and Brian Daboll has turned them around quickly here. They look like they're actually trying to compete in games, but they're still, you've got to face teams in your division that are going to be a lot more competitive than the New York Giants. So, I mean, I don't know how they turn it around. That's why I think Matt Rule's in trouble. I think this team is in trouble. And I think it starts, as many things do, at the quarterback position. Because like you said, this is a pretty darn good roster minus the quarterback.
Right.
Put in a better quarterback and a better management style. You still got to call the right plays. I don't care if you bring in Aaron friggin' Rodgers or the best quarterback, Pat Mahomes.
They had a shot at Deshaun Watson.
Yeah,
you weren't willing to overpay. You can't compete with the contract you got in Cleveland.
Nor should you.
Maybe Lamar would come for $190 million guaranteed.
Right. And then even if Lamar's your quarterback, how do you win the game? You give it to Christian McCaffrey and you use Lamar to the best of his abilities. But you will do it through Christian McCaffrey because that's your star player. That's the guy who makes the difference for you. That's how you win games.
Well, the other thing too is this college coach experiment, right? It's still up in the air on that.
I mean, he got a 10-year contract,
right? 10-year contract, and the guy turned around a lot of programs, but Cliff Kingsbury's in this conversation, the great Chip Kelly, Urban Meyer, if you will, Nick Saban during his time, just these great college coaches. I mean, if you can think of an example off the top of your head where it's been successful, I'd love to hear that, but I can't think of one. Nope. So I just think it's maybe overhyped, winning in college and then transferring to the NFL. It's just not the same, right? So giving him a 10-year deal just, to me, is nuts. But that's what it takes to get a guy in the door, right?
Right.
If you like a guy and you believe in him,
right, and you want somebody who can build the team, right? They've done a lot of good things trying to build this team.
All there.
Who cares about the wins when you're rebuilding? You're not going to have a lot of wins when you're rebuilding from scratch.
But we're going through these games, and the thing that pops out is quarterback play is more important than it ever has been. The way the league's built right now, where it's pass friendly, and these quarterbacks are so efficient in the league. You look around the league, there's so many efficient quarterbacks. We were talking about Tua versus Lamar, Mahomes, Allen, obviously, Aaron Rodgers with his limited receivers. You got to have a good quarterback play, period.
Well, even look on the other side of this, right? The Giants are 2-0 with Danny Dimes, right? And he's done what he's had to do to win the games. He hasn't been spectacular. He's not Josh Allen out there, but he makes
trying
plays.
to be.
He runs with his legs. He passes well, right? He completes when he needs to. He finds open players. He's good. He doesn't need to be great. He doesn't need to be amazing.
Would you call Daniel Jones at this point after 2 weeks a poor man's Josh Allen?
A very poor man's Josh Allen. I don't think I'd compare him to Josh Allen. He's a good quarterback. I'd put him in the tier of good. I probably had him at below average before this, but right now he's good. He's doing what he needs to do for this team to win games. Saquon is the star. All you need to do is find the open guys when they're there, not make mistakes, and find plays. He's able to run, so he can make that first down if it's there for him and nobody's open. And he's been able to do that. Brian Daboll has successfully used Daniel Jones in a way similar to what Josh Allen can do, but not nearly as good, right? And just do what you need to do to win games. Don't rely on Daniel Jones. Just do what he needs to do. And their defense has done pretty well too, but you got to give Daniel Jones the credit because he has not screwed up his opportunities, and that is why they're 2-0. And if you've seen any of the Giants games, Daniel Jones actually is doing the job that he needs to do.
Yeah, he's been playing pretty decent, but they're sticking to their identity as well. And that's Saquon Barkley, 21 rush attempts for him, 72 yards, 3.2 yards per carry. So it's tough sledding, but it seems like they're sticking to who they are. And when you have a guy like Saquon, that's who you are, right? We're unsure about the quarterback, declined his option, but you're rolling with Saquon, and you can win games that way.
Yep,
for sure. The Panthers 2 for 12 on third down. That's just horrible. That's really probably the biggest difference in this game. But yeah, Giants are winning close ones. I think the Tennessee was a surprise. This one's not so surprising, but they're fun to watch moving forward. I wish them well, But I think Matt Rule, you got to have that tough conversation at the end of the year. Could he be a coach that's fired early? Could he be a coach that's let go at the end of the year? It's hard to think he will be with that long-term contract, but we've seen weird situations before, right?
Right. Seems to me with that big contract, the 10-year contract, they're giving you more leeway than the average coach.
Yeah.
Average coaches' contracts are 4 years because if you're still screwing up in year 3, you're fired. That's it.
Right.
You get 2 years from a totally rebuilding team to say, okay, we're rebuilding.
But can't remember.
You're fired.
Yeah. I know they had an ownership change recently. And I wasn't sure if Matt Rule was he hired by the previous owner or is he hired by this new owner?
That's a good question.
Good question, because it takes them a minute, right? Remember, I think the most recent team that was bought was besides Denver was Buffalo, and they hired Rex Ryan out the gate.
Right,
that didn't work. And now, Denver hired Nathaniel Hackett out the gate. So is that working? I don't know.
See.
So yeah, it takes them a minute here. All right, move on to the next one here. We have New England at Pittsburgh. New England 17, Pittsburgh 14. Man, my first thoughts of this is just that Pittsburgh team just did not show up in this game. But that's what New England does, right? They just kind of, poke you all day long and you get wore down. They don't do anything really good, like great. It's just a lot of good. I mean, their receivers played really well, I would say.
Whose?
New England's. Kenyon Bourne. They made key catches and key moments. That's what they do.
Yes. Okay.
It's not like they had like a statistical great day.
Right.
They really just didn't make any mistakes. They didn't know drops. There's a couple, I'm sure, but not like.
I think that's exactly with Mac Jones, right?
Right.
He did make some nice throws in this game again. He did what he had to do, and that's what you get with Mac Jones. But I give less of the credit to this win to the Patriots and more of it to the Pittsburgh Steelers just screwing up, right?
I don't know. Nelson Aguilar catch. He mossed think it was Weatherspoon or one of the
Yeah.
Steelers
Yeah.
corners.
I mean, he had a big day, but
Awesome.
yes. But again, I put that on the Steelers more than I do. I give credit to New England, right? They scored 17 points, New England. 17. Pittsburgh did what they had to do to hold them, at least. Without TJ Watt, you only gave up 17 points. I don't care what you say about New England's defense and Bill Belichick. The Steelers had at least 3 opportunities to go for the jugular. All you need to do is score a touchdown. You got an opportunity. You're in your territory. You get back. Okay, you make a play, and then you stop and you have to punt. Or you make a turnover. Like what? You had the Steelers literally had at least 5 opportunities, 5 that I counted just in following the game and not watching it every play, that I was like, oh, okay, here it is. Here's where the Steelers come back and score or tie it with a field goal or whatever. And they just refused to. Now, yes, okay, you want to give credit to New England's defense, maybe, but I'm sorry.
Sure.
This falls on the Patriots offense for me. And you got to start having the conversation about Mitch Trubisky, right? Is he the guy?
Well, I thought he dumped it down too much. I'd like to see him take more chances. I mean,
after this game, I don't see why you keep Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. And I'm a Mitch Trubisky fan. Like, no, they ran into themselves. They lost this game. New England didn't win it. The Steelers lost it, and they didn't want it.
Yeah,
and it looked bad, and especially
Trubisky
on
throws
offense.
the ball 33 times, only 168 yards, and I just saw too many checkdowns.
Yep,
he
just wasn't a playmaker.
You got to make plays, throw the ball down the field. He's got the ability to do that stuff. Just yeah. I don't know what it is. He's got a little of that Tyrod Taylor syndrome where he just doesn't want to.
Yeah, and
again, there's a lot of money to be made in the backup quarterback market. You know what I mean? Start slinging picks and interceptions around. You know, they're the same thing, but if you start throwing picks, that opportunities go away, right? So little hesitation is my point.
Yeah.
But yeah, Steelers calling for Kenny in week 2.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of examples. The only examples I can think of is Trey Lance, who we'll get to later, and Pat Mahomes are the only 2 I know that didn't play week 1. The only 2 first-round quarterbacks that didn't play, not week 1, but their first season, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it looks more and more like Kenny Pickett's going to get in there to me. You play the Browns on Thursday. We already mentioned that's going to be a key matchup here. And even if the Steelers win, if Trubisky doesn't do something to show that he's a leader on this team, you go to Kenny Pickett, because I've mentioned this before on this show. When you have a quarterback that isn't taking that next step for your team, and you have one waiting in the wings who could potentially take that next step for your team, you have no incentive to keep the guy in there who's not getting it done. You want to go to the young guy who might make more mistakes, but has the potential to take your team to that next step, because otherwise you're stuck in this neutral and no team wants to be there. It's just not worth it.
I'm trying to think of quarterbacks who sat behind a bridge player before they played. Tua was one of them, I think. And he sat for 5 weeks before he actually played. But it might have been an injury. I think he threw 2 passes. So it was really 6 weeks for him for his first start. And I can't remember who
was that
the bridge player was. It might have been Fitz. Yep, good point.
Who was still there? Yeah, and then
it might have been Fitz. But yeah, it just doesn't take long, right? We're going to see Kenny Pickett week 4 or 5, in my opinion.
We could. Like I said, even if they beat the Browns, I wouldn't be surprised if they go to Pickett in week 4. If Trubisky doesn't do something to put his stamp on this offense that he's the leader. Not even that he has to have a big game or 300 yards. You just got to show you can get it done. And again, in this game, they just ran into brick wall after brick wall after brick wall, tripping over their own 2 feet. So you can't. I mean,
and these quarterbacks need these reps. I mean, Trey Lance is a different story. He has very limited professional reps. If you're counting college as professional reps, right? Division 1, or he's in Division 2, but he needs football reps, you know. And he sat for a year, plays 2 games. Now he's out, and you might not see him start again. He's not going to get an equal chance now, is what I'm saying. But Kenny Pickett, who played, 3 or 4 years in college, I can't remember if it was I think he had 4 years. He was a senior, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
Regardless, he played in a semi-pro system, right? So he already has that. I say throw him in there week 4, right?
I wouldn't be surprised. Yep, we'll see. That's what I would do.
Are you looking up if he was a senior? I think he had 4 years in college.
Let's see his college stats. Yep, 2017 to 2021. Yep, 4 years.
Yeah, so you get him in the game. Get him in there. He's a local kid, right? Played at Pittsburgh. He's in Pittsburgh. You took him in the first round. Put him.
They
in the
love
game.
him. They want him. See what he can do.
Because again, you just hate to see what happens to Trey Lance. I mean, that hurts bad. You know what I mean? So don't even delay it. I know the Josh Allen situation. They tried to sit him, but the Peterman was so bad they didn't have a choice.
In the half, he didn't even make it to half.
So why even bother? You know what I mean? But anyway. All right, let's move on to the next game. Here we got Cincinnati at Dallas. Cincinnati now 0-2, which is very surprising. Cincinnati 17, Dallas 20. Dallas had the backup quarterback, Cooper Rush.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Cooper. All right.
Yeah, count me in the boat of looking like a damn fool for not believing in Cooper Rush and what the Cowboys could do with their run game, despite being demoralized by the loss of Dak Prescott. Right? They came out and said, "We do have something to prove, and we're going to prove all you guys wrong."
Yeah, really. They got up early, right? 14 points in the first quarter, and the rest, a couple field goals throughout. Really, the Cowboys' defense played well.
And Joe Burrow looked terrible, right? They could not keep him up standing up.
The offensive line is having issues with Cincinnati.
And they rebuilt that offensive line and tried to say, okay, now we're going to actually protect our quarterback and see what he can do.
Right. Just they're having communication problems or they're just getting beat. And look, there's not that many pocket quarterbacks left, right? You need the mobile quarterback now. So there's some of that as well, right? You have to have a really, really efficient offensive line to succeed with a pocket quarterback in today's league, it seems like. And often it's hard to do because offensive linemen don't get the time to practice that they used to get. So the communication's got to be really good. You know what I mean? Seems like Cincinnati's kind of off a little bit on that right now. But yeah, Cooper Rush, we were talking about bring in Fitz, call Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
What's Jimmy Garoppolo doing? So Cooper Rush proved us wrong. Love to see it.
Yeah, and how about Noah Brown in this game, the receiver?
Yeah, Noah Brown.
Whoa, he had a couple of really great catches, and every time he catches the ball, I'm like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? And maybe there's something to be said about having your backup quarterback and your backup receivers who have chemistry together now going out there and they click on all cylinders because they're used to playing together.
Well, he's him. He's the guy that was going to step up for the Cowboys. Remember, we talked about this in our divisional predictions. Somebody on that Cowboys offense needs to step up. We don't know who it's going to be.
It was Brown.
Ends up being Noah Brown. And he looks like the real deal. So
yeah, he made some great catches in this game.
He is
despite the bad Bengals defense and their woes on the offensive line. Yeah, they just had to play okay, and they did. They took advantage of their opportunities. Didn't blow it in the end. They could have. It's still close. Final score.
Right. Close throughout.
But
tough game. Yeah, tough on both sides.
Most people like me expected the Bengals to win this one big without Dak Prescott and, come in there and show that they're a legitimate offense and could score a lot of points. But credit to Dallas because we know they have a good defense. Micah Parsons might be the new young upcoming best player on the planet.
I thought you were going to say JJ Watt. I was about to correct you.
No, best player on the planet. He's that good.
He's the next JJ Watt.
No,
the media will not allow that. Nobody touches JJ Watt.
He's different. He can pass rush. He's fast. He's so good. And you can't understate that. He's a second-year player, right?
I'm pretty sure he was drafted to be a linebacker too.
Yes, right, a linebacker. But yeah, right. He's more of a.
What happened here? Because he's not like a huge guy.
Yes, exactly. He's a skinny guy. He looks like me going after the quarterback, and
it's kind of funny.
And he's very good. Just so you could see that. Yes, we've already talked about the offensive line played terribly, but wherever he was on the field, they tried to deal with him, and every time he's getting to Burrow one way or another. around,
fast.
all the way
Yeah, he's
around,
fast.
right
Yeah.
through. I mean, it was fun to watch him and be like, wow, okay, this guy's legit.
He looks like almost like Von Miller out there, where he's not
Yes,
disruptive. Where
precisely.
you have less than 2 seconds to throw the ball.
That's a
because
great
of him.
comparison because
Yeah,
technically
definitely
he's a
different
linebacker
players
too.
playing different sides right
Right.
now, but yeah,
But what
that's
you
what
call
he
a
reminds.
linebacker,
It's not
and
more
who's
like the
really a
style of
playmaker.
play, because they each have their own style, their own moves.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
more like the impact he has in the game is Von Miller
Yes.
type. Like,
The
you got to
versatility.
get rid of the ball very fast
The
because he's there.
versatility, the fact that he's still going to do it even though you are keying in on him, right? You're keying in on him and he still gets it done. Same with
Yeah.
Von Miller.
All right, next thing is Cincinnati in trouble at 0-2. Super Bowl hangover, folks, right?
Yep.
They've not looked good, They
This
just
to
have,
me is real, but I expected this from them a little bit. I had them not winning the division, but making the playoffs as one of the lower wild card teams and not winning in the playoffs, by the way. So their weaknesses are showing a lot earlier than I thought they would against teams that, they should have beaten in 2 weeks in a row now. And I think that doesn't bode well for where they are at morally, because poor frickin' Joe Burrow needs to back up 15 yards and get it snapped to him so that he can throw the ball before somebody's in his face, right?
And they're still an explosive team,
Yes, they still
especially
have great
in week
playmakers.
1. They were very explosive. Just little mistakes are killing them.
And their inability to protect Joe Burrow. That has to change. And maybe it does. Maybe they find a way to click with the offensive line and get to the bottom of what's really not working. But if you're going to use Jamar Chase and those wide receivers and Joe Mixon and Joe Burrow to the best of their ability, you've got to figure it out. Like, what is the problem we're having here on this offensive line, and how can we maximize the protection for Joe Burrow and get the most out of this offense?
Yeah.
Because although we talked about the playmakers on Dallas's defense, this isn't one of the best defenses they're going to see moving forward either. Again, we talk about the division matchups here and how tough those are going to be in the competitive AFC, when you have the AFC West, and the AFC East looking pretty good. This division, might only have the division winner coming out at this point. And I picked the Ravens to win this division and not the Bengals. And that could mean the Bengals are on the outs.
Yeah, could be. I mean, the Super Bowl hangover thing, if you want to have a good time, search Super Bowl curse on Wikipedia. There's a lot of good information in there.
Losing Super Bowl team usually misses the playoffs, right?
The history of the Super Bowl and how how the teams did after that. Obviously, historical data has nothing to do with current teams. Just because they're 0-2 doesn't mean they can make playoffs. Even though it's a 10% probability, that means nothing. This team is good enough to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Division looks a little weaker than we thought. But yeah, 12 of 27 Super Bowl runner-ups did not make the playoffs the following year. 4 finished last in the division.
Yeah,
so they're now in 2 stats, right? 0-2 start. I think we said there's a 9.5% chance you make the playoffs after an 0-2 start. And now, because you're the Super Bowl runner-up, what's this? 12 of 27, less than 50%. Don't make the playoffs, and 4 of the 27 finished last in their division.
Rough. Very, very rough. So, I mean, are the Bengals there yet? No, I still think they're good enough to win games, and the division is still open to an extent. You got to play Baltimore, and I expect at the best that's going to be a 1-1, series there, and that's, tough sledding to get over that and find your way into the AFC playoffs.
Yep, going to be a tough road, not impossible. All right, let's move on to the next one here. Houston at Denver, 9-16. Denver gets the win. Tough game throughout, though. I thought it was pretty close, throughout most of the game.
Yeah.
Let's just touch on Houston here because they're playing decent. They're in these games, right? They tie with the Colts last week. They almost pull off the upset in Denver. Is the GM, Nick Cassero, the issue here? He inherited a mess.
Yes.
But it's been a little time now. You know, are they building something, or are they going in the wrong direction? What's your thoughts on the?
I mean, you know my
strategy?
thoughts on this because we did the pregame or preseason preview shows. I'm high on Houston. I like this team, and this is exactly where I said they would be. Right? They're competing. They tied against a team that most people had them losing by 10 points or more. Here they were a 10-point underdog. I bet them. They were one of my bets. That's a winner, right? 9-16. They only lost by 7, which is pretty much where I said they would on the show too. They are good enough to compete. And given the fact that Houston was the bottom of the bottom of the bottom barrel, this has now looks like a real NFL team. There were times where I've called over the last couple of years the Houston Texans not an NFL team. They're not an NFL team. They're fielding a joke of a team. Now they have pieces that look like a real team. Do they have the talent level that they need to make the playoffs? No. But they do have at least the momentum to build in the right direction. Maybe they turn 3 wins into 5 this year. And then maybe they turn those 5 into 7 next year. And that's building in the right direction. You have to figure out if Davis Mills is going to be your franchise quarterback, or at least the quarterback for the next 5 years. What you've got in pieces like Nico Collins, who's a guy I really like, Brevin Jordan, somebody I really like, using the new pieces you brought in, OJ Howard, the running back, Pierce, who is looking really good so far. I like this team and just think that they don't have quite the talent to get over the hump of a more talented team like Denver, who's been a lot more competitive, in games and has a lot more talent and is expected to do a lot more than this Houston team, but still only won by a touchdown, which means Houston was in it until their very last possession.
All right. Well said. This game was sloppy.
Bad.
All the way around. Russell Wilson, less than 50% in his completions. Davis Mills, 19 of 38. I have to do the math on that one. But quarterback rating of 63. Russell Wilson's quarterback rating 66. Brandon Cooks targeted 10 times, 4 receptions. Yeah, just an ugly game. Third downs for Houston, 2 of 13. It's 15%. For the Broncos, it's 3 of 12. Yeah, just a really seemed like
painful.
A sloppy game. Neither team scored in the red zone. So,
yep. The first, what was it? First 3 possessions were punts, and then field goal, punt, field goal, punt, field goal, end of half.
Yes, just barn burner type
interception,
game,
field goal, punt. I mean,
or it could be good defense. Good argument there.
Yes, I don't think that was the case. Although, again, one thing that Houston does have going for them, they have a few good names on defense, and they have a defensive-minded coach who is, has a track record, and we know what to expect from him.
Yeah, Lovie Smith.
So, and that's what's going to keep them in games. That's what's going to keep them.
Yeah. Yep. For sure, yeah. I have a lot of respect for him as a coach, no doubt about it. We know Denver's defense is decent.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Denver, good, but not great. Again, expectations high for them. But again, I think what we're seeing is exactly what I said in the prediction show for the AFC West. There's a gap between the Chargers, Chiefs, and the Broncos and Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that seems to be playing out now. Anytime you get a new coach, new quarterback, new owner, things are going to be a little weird for a while. Right, and it seems like Russ is just having a hard time adapting here to the new offense. Seems like the coach, Nathaniel Hackett's having a hard time taking on extra duties as a head coach. This guy's always been a great offensive coordinator, but now there's extra duties. It's not normal. It's new. And who knows what ownership's doing. That's above my pay grade. But they're probably doing some new stuff as well. It just seems like things are kind of a mess there right so far. All right. Next one. Carson Wentz. We got to get into this. Washington at Detroit. Washington 27 at Detroit 36. Detroit gets the win there. But let's talk about Carson Wentz, because this gets me going every week. And we've talked about this every week, so I'm sorry for bringing this up every single time, but he just kills me because the guy's got so much talent. When he's on, I think he's as good as anybody in the league. Maybe a step down from Mahomes and Allen. Maybe a step down. Sure.
But Tier 2. Yeah. Right.
You just can't get the guy on, though. It's like he's only on for like a couple drives a game. We saw a lot of high throws from him. But man, this was really a back and forth game, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought Carson Wentz was going to bring them back. If they didn't have that slump in the beginning, they could have won this game. Like if there was a 5th and 6th quarter, I think the Commanders pulled this game off because of Carson Wentz. But just
Yes.
had such a bad first half. They couldn't get it going.
Right. And this is another example where I think they had opportunities, even in this, when they were down big in the second half, they had opportunities to capitalize on. A couple of them they did, but a couple of them they didn't. And when you put yourself in that big of a hole, you have to capitalize on all of them, like the Jets did against Cleveland, like other teams did that came back, like Arizona did, for example. Here, Washington just didn't have everything to get over that hump, right? They scored what they could. It seemed like Detroit was like, okay, we'll give you a little, but we're not giving you it all. And that's all they had to do to come away with the win because they believe, they could stop Carson Wentz. His stat line looks good, right? 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, only 1 interception. But the missed passes, the going down big, what are we doing to get back in this? It takes away the run game for one, right? Gibson, one of your best players. You got to get more of your pass catchers involved. Terry McLaurin's a great player on this team, but he didn't have a touchdown or, a huge play on a third down that changed the momentum in this game because he relies on Carson Wentz for that. And I think that's the difference. Goff, on the other side, not going to blow anybody away, but he had 4 touchdowns, 4 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
I mean,
really, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown is a real deal, folks.
Totally.
And you pair him with DeAndre Swift, those two guys, they can carry an offense. They're good.
His stats are insane. I believe he has a touchdown in like 9 straight games or something like that.
He's good. I watched the full game, and that guy can play. St. Brown's the real deal.
He is, yeah.
Goff, again, he's another guy that goes through cold and hot streaks. When he's on, again, love his game when he's playing well. But he just, goes through these really cold streaks, and that really hurts the team, because if it's a back and forth game and you miss out on a drive, it's basically a turnover. You know what I mean? That kills the team.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you're right. These two teams are very comparable in that way. They kind of
right, and that's exactly how this game went too.
yeah, and just like last week when the Lions couldn't get over the hump of the Eagles, even though they fought their way back. In this game, they almost blew it and allowed Washington to come back, but they held on and were able to get the win. So their defense gives me a lot to be questioned, if they can get it done moving forward. Even their offense, even though you got guys, you said it, Amon-Ra St. Brown is a difference maker, period. DeAndre Swift, his health was questionable in this one, so they might not have used him as much, but he is a difference maker for that team. Are those good enough to rack them up the wins? I don't think so. I think both of these teams end up being in that mediocre pile.
Say, who has the better record at the end of the year? Go. Detroit or Washington?
Lions, I'd say. Pressed to the fire, not very confidently. I think they could end up with the same record, both with like 6 wins, like that's.
Yeah. But do you think Detroit's on their way to change the culture, though?
Correct.
Because this term gets thrown around too much.
Absolutely.
Now, changing the culture. I mean, you got to back that up. Yep. Buffalo certainly did. They preached it. They backed it up. And look at them today. I'm trying to think of other teams who've
just
changed
watching
their culture,
Hard Knocks, though. Just watching Hard Knocks and seeing what their mentality is, what their coaching staff is doing. They're doing it differently. And that's what they need to do. Look, all this other stuff isn't working, right?
Rex Ryan was a Hard Knock star in 2009.
Okay, but that was way different. Way different. You're talking personality-wise. I'm talking football approach-wise. Football approach-wise, their staff, their coaches, they're all mostly former NFL players. They're doing it very differently. They're bringing in attitude and approach. They're taking it seriously and competitive with each other because that's the only thing they know. Right, the offensive and defensive coordinator on Hard Knocks. It's so fun to watch them go at it because they are seriously competitive with each other. They want to beat each other, and when they're on the same side during game day, they're getting it done. And you could see that the players on just watching Hard Knocks again, the players are buying into it. The players believe in this team and the direction it's going to. And that is the first thing you need. You talked about Sean McDermott and chemistry, right? The way how was he able to prove it? He said, this is who we are. This is what we stand for. And this is how we're going to build this team. And they practice what they preach. They said it and they went out and did it. This team wants to bite knees, and that's exactly how they're winning games, right? They're staying competitive. They're giving it their all. Their attitude, their energy is all there. Their talent level still needs to be brought up a notch in order to win more consistently. But that takes a few years. You're not going to overnight turn your team from the worst team in the league to the best team in the league. Yet it takes time to build. And that's why I believe in the Detroit Lions and what they're doing there. I do think they're building.
I don't really have a huge sample size in Detroit. I haven't really dove deep into their film or anything, but this game, I thought their game plan was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you got to have the game plan piece if you want to change culture, right?
Yeah.
You got to put your players in position to succeed.
Right.
And well, the first thing is you need players that can succeed. They have that part. Now can you draw it up so they, can you help them succeed, right? And that's kind of where they are. We're still kind of waiting.
Yes,
right?
And you could see that on the defensive side, they really want to, if they had better personnel, it's not the play calls, I don't think. It's just that the players are limited, and when they fail, the other team takes advantage of it big time. And right now, that's not on the coaching staff as much as it is the talent on the team, and that needs to improve and get better. They have good young pieces on the defense that I really like, but they aren't quite to the level where they can compete every day on defense. And we're seeing that. The scores are reflecting their offense, and the fact that they're giving up more points, or mostly more points, is, going to be not, you can't win games in that manner, right? Their defense has to catch up at some point, but it's going in the right direction for them.
For sure. Yep. Let's move on to the next one here. We're getting towards the end. We have Indianapolis 0 at the Jacksonville Jaguars
0.
24.
Wow.
Yeah. So Jaguars run away with the shutout. What is going on in Indianapolis? We got to talk about this right now.
Yes.
Because we both picked them to win the division, I believe, right?
Yes.
You picked them too?
Absolutely. Yeah. They're a good team. And why did we pick them? We both picked them for the same reason. Coaching, right? They are a good coaching team. They have good coaches. They got good talent. Jonathan Taylor, you can't go wrong with him, right? Matt Ryan is gone. His career is over. He is done.
I don't agree with that.
I don't think he's the guy.
But we thought that with Wentz last year.
Well, Wentz isn't as old as
I know, but
Matt Ryan is, and hasn't been in the league
the
as
Colts
long.
run Wentz out of town because he loses the last game to Jacksonville. Go figure.
You bring in Ryan, he's supposed to be the savior now. You're going to win games. They're going to be good.
But
because you're not putting it on his shoulders, right? Again, this team has Jonathan freaking Taylor. I can play quarterback for them because what they should be doing is handing it to Jonathan freaking Taylor and winning games. Period. End of story.
But
when you have to rely on your quarterback, that's not going to be good. And right now, that's why they made the change. We had to rely on Carson Wentz. He couldn't just be good enough for us.
Well, let's go to the first quarter. Interception, punt. Let's go to the second quarter. Punt. Longest net yards in the second quarter is 20 yards for a drive.
Not good.
Third quarter, you get one possession punt. You only net 21 yards. Fourth quarter, turnover on downs. I think they went for it on fourth down. Must have been close to the end zone. Good drive, right? 64 yards. The same thing happens in the second time around from the Jacksonville 8. The first one's from the Jacksonville 13. The second one's from the Jacksonville 8. 2 turnovers on downs going for it.
Yeah, that's just a result.
Probably because they're down.
You're down big. You got to go for it.
Yeah, you got to go up. So not going to knock them for that. But then you have interception. So, okay, we can talk about Matt Ryan being the problem, but no, a good coach will get you a score, right? An offensive genius or a good offensive coach can just take the ball away from the quarterback and get down to field goal range. Right? Am I missing something? Something's wrong with Indianapolis.
You're right that it falls on the coaching staff that they decided, again, we just said this with Mitch Trubisky and a couple other, they decided that Matt Ryan was the guy to get them where they need to be. He is not. Full stop. I don't care what happens next. I don't care what happens in the next 3 games. He could throw 5 touchdowns and look great. Matt Ryan is not going to be the guy to get it done. This is the Jacksonville Jaguars you're playing. You scored 0 points. That is 100% on the quarterback. I don't care what anybody says. You scored 0 points. Again, I feel like I could go out there and score points. Why? Because I can hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor. I don't need to do anything. I just give it to the guy who knows what he's doing. So maybe you're right that's parts on the coaching. Why did you go down big? Because you let them claw at you and come back and score, and you couldn't get anything done on offense. You couldn't even get first downs, right? I mean, it was bad. And there was a stat that my friend who's a Jaguars fan told me after we had recorded, but before the game that...
Wait, there's Jaguars fans?
Yeah, he's the one I know. All right. So, yeah.
I don't think I've ever met a Jaguars fan.
Yes. And he's diehard. I mean, we've been friends for years, and he's, always been diehard to his Jaguars. But he said to me, oh, yeah, the Colts are 0-8 in Jacksonville. And I was like, wait a minute, what? The last 8 games, they're 0-8 in Jacksonville? I had no idea.
That would make more sense because I was going to mention
they suck in Jacksonville.
We're trashing the Colts, but like Jacksonville's defense really is good. Like they shut down the Bills last year. We've seen flashes before.
Yes, they've had good games, but they're not good. I wouldn't call them good. They're okay. They can
shut out the Colts.
Sure. They shut out the Colts. The Colts shut out themselves. Is what I'm telling you. Yes, they do deserve credit. They shut them out. Yes, they beat the Bills last year. Great. They have to show up and play and put up the defense to do that. But this is more on the Colts than it is the Jaguars. Jaguars just did what they had to do. All right. Credit to Trevor Lawrence. This was his best game ever. Not saying much because he's terrible so far, but he's got to string a few of these together before I believe he's the Jesus walking on water that everybody had him being when he came into the league. But and look at their run game. Their run game took over in this game just because they used that balance. Whereas Matt Ryan and Jonathan Taylor couldn't do that. And the more you went down, what happens when you go down 7 points? Well, we're going to have to pass a little more. What happens when you go down 14? Okay, we're going to have to pass a lot more. And Matt Ryan could not do it. Now, maybe you put that on the receivers if you want to, who was their leading receiver.
Well, I think
they don't have a lot of names there. Yeah, Pittman's the guy.
He's out though, right?
Yes, but he was out. So what did they have to do with him? Okay, you got Ashton Dolan was their leading receiver. Who in the damn world is that?
Right.
I don't know.
They lack depth there. I mean, Paris Campbell's the guy they took years ago. Just haven't seen much from him. Supposed to be a speedster.
Mo Alley Cox, the tight end. I had a lot of momentum. I thought he would have a good season with Matt Ryan. He had 1 catch for 9 yards in this game. So, I mean, that was where is the offense? Great. You don't have Pittman. Pittman's a great player, but he shouldn't dictate your offense like that. There's no way one player being out should change your offense so that you score 0 points. 0.
Right.
And look this bad.
Yeah.
Something's
wrong.
Yes.
Something's wrong.
And
there.
I think
this could get out of hand real quick. And also, I don't know if I feel bad for Colts fans. You've had 2 of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play.
Yes.
And now you're in quarterback, hell, purgatory, if you will. But really, these quarterbacks aren't bad either. Wentz and Matt Ryan, they're not that bad.
No, you're getting the names there, but they're at the ends of their career. Like this is it for Matt Ryan. He's done. His goose is cooked, and I'm there to say it. Even if they make the playoffs, it's not going to be because of Matt Ryan.
Yeah, Matt Ryan's been
he's retiring.
I have a lot of respect, and I think
Hall of Famer. I love his career. Yeah. I love what he did in Atlanta for so many years. I mean, he was the reason they were good, and he carried that team a lot. And yeah, I mean, I just think it's unfortunate to see this, but it's done.
Well, the punter's getting a lot of action. The punter comes over from Buffalo.
Yeah.
Where he didn't punt at all, really. And now he's getting a lot of action. So a good career move for him, getting some film.
Go ahead. No, the other thing with this team, if they're going to move forward and make the playoffs, they haven't set themselves up well with a young quarterback. Unlike the other teams where we talked about, okay, you've got this guy, the next up is here, so that's why we're kicking you out. There is no plan B for these Colts right now. So Matt Ryan not succeeding, you're done.
And that's tough too, because they had Andrew Luck. He retires, arguably in the prime of his career in his injuries. I understand why he did all that. But at that point, you should have took a quarterback, to develop or, and then bring Wentz in. That would have been a nice relationship. But you don't know if Luck's going to come back. You kind of want to leave that door open for a little while. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You can't just move on immediately and then he decides to come back. That would be a mistake. So I'm sure they had those type of conversations. But yeah, we'll keep a close eye on them moving forward. But I expect them to get better. There's just something weird. Maybe the offense isn't clicking for Matt Ryan. I just don't know. But I think they're going to look at themselves in the mirror this week and really answer a lot of tough questions in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, let's flip over to the other side who did take a young quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Probably the most hyped quarterback since Andrew Luck. We've talked about that a million times. How's he looking so far in his sophomore campaign? I wrote down as a note here, nah. He's a
Yeah,
meh.
I agree. There weren't any like, wow, that play was spectacular and this guy's awesome. Again, I think it was more of the play calling, the game plan, the running the ball that changed the pace of this game. James
He looks
Robinson was
comfortable.
electric.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think Lawrence looks comfortable. He's not making mistakes.
he's got good chemistry with Christian Kirk, who they brought
Right.
in and paid a
Yep.
lot of
That's
money. So
working.
you need that to happen. So that is a positive for me. But you're right that I haven't seen something, obviously what Tua did is way exceptional, but that kind of a moment where you're like, okay, this guy is legit and he is ready to play and be the star in the NFL. Because when you're the first overall pick, hands down with that much praise, it puts a lot of pressure on you to prove it and prove it earlier than maybe a guy like Tua who's been given a couple seasons and now is starting to show, yes, he's the guy.
Right. I think, yeah, you'd like to see more from a guy that hyped or drafted that high, as always. But again, expectations are endless for Trevor Lawrence. But I think he's playing well. He's in a good spot. With Christian Kirk, that seems to be working. The defense played well in this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see how it goes. If they win 6 games, that's a successful season.
Yes. Right coach, again, right direction.
Yep, I love
They're
that.
finally building the way they should.
Yep, so kudos to the Jags. We're rooting for you. All right, moving on here. Let's go Rams at Falcons. Rams pull this one off with a 31-27 victory. Rams bounce back, but Atlanta off to an 0-2 start. We don't have to dive too deep into this one.
Yeah, I think the big thing here is Atlanta staying in the game. I picked them plus the 10 points. Remember, I said Rams are good, but 10 points is really big spread for this game. And
right. Any
they
game in the NFL is
they
big.
came in it, right? The Falcons, again, are one of those teams that I said don't quite have the talent to get over the hump, but they're going to be competitive this year more than people think. And this was a game where they proved exactly that. And I think, you look at Mariota, he had a couple of interceptions, but a couple of big plays. He started to build a comeback in the fourth quarter.
Right. Drake London looked great, right?
Yes. Legitimate
He
star
looks like the
there,
real
young
deal.
guy.
Yep. Kyle Pitts there. Still not utilizing him a lot.
Quiet, yeah. I think the Mariota Pitts connection needs to get worked out there. It doesn't seem like they have the chemistry that maybe Matt Ryan did last year or, in general. But there are guys stepping up for that team, the Atlanta Falcons team. They blew the lead last week, but they came back in this one, just didn't quite have enough time or energy, resources to get all the way over the hump and take the lead. And the Rams, end up coming away with the win that they needed, a much, much needed win after the Rams got embarrassed by the Bills, quite frankly, in week 1. And this would have been an even more embarrassing loss to lose to the Falcons for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. But yeah, not much to talk about with the Falcons. I think they're using Kyle Pitts as a distraction. But yeah, looks like they got some pieces there. And the Rams got embarrassed last week, so they're trying to look to bounce back. So I'm sure they brought their best game plan. The Rams are stacked on both sides of the ball, so tough matchup for the Falcons.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like what they're building there. But let's talk about the Rams. Rams bounce back.
Yeah, and who's leading the way? That guy Cooper Kupp, who's an MVP candidate.
Unreal.
I mean, it's 11 receptions, 108 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's unbelievable. But that's what you expect from Cooper Kupp now. That's like Cooper Kupp moment,
okay,
right?
Check the box.
It's crazy.
And
And
we criticized them last week for not using Allen Robinson, for not getting Cam Akers involved, and both of those players get involved in this one.
Yeah, and Stafford had 2 interceptions in this game as well that, started that, hope to come back there. And again, they're a team that relies heavily on their offensive production, right? That's why they brought in Stafford to begin with and moved on from Goff, because they're like, look, you can't get us what we need to get with the guys that we have. And yes, they did some good in this game, but if I'm looking at just the final score, 27-31 against the Falcons, there's still alarm bells going off that something isn't quite right here. All right. The Rams defense is this, highly touted defense, and you've got Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. And what is not going on right now that you're giving up 27 points and almost a comeback to the Atlanta Falcons, right? A team that is looked at to be far inferior to you as a Super Bowl contender. So something still isn't quite clicking right there. And the fact that Matthew Stafford isn't the one leading the charge with the team, but is maintaining what they need to win, which is all you really need, but not good enough. Not good enough for me from Stafford.
Yeah, fair point there. I mean, you expect more from the Super Bowl champs. And it's early in the season. We saw slumps from Pat Mahomes last year. Maybe they're in a similar situation. I expect them to pull out of it later on in the season. No other reason to think they won't. So
yes, they have a very talented roster. They should.
Let's move on to one of the Monday night matchups. Tennessee at Buffalo. And this is a complete blowout. Buffalo 41-7 over Tennessee.
In 3 quarters.
Yes. And Josh Allen played 3 quarters.
Right? Yeah. The Dolphins scored 42 points in 4 quarters, 4 full quarters, all the way to the last second. The Bills scored 41 in 2.5 quarters, really. So
yes. This very easy game to watch if you're a Bills fan. And it just reminded me, is this what it's like to be a Patriots fan all those years? You can go to Home Depot, you can work on something around the house, come back at halftime, be up 3 scores. But yeah, the Bills look great. Let's start with Tennessee and knock this out because I want to talk about the Bills. Malik Willis or Ryan Tannehill at this point? We'll start there.
I think they stick with Tannehill still for a couple of games. But they're in the situation, as we've talked about ad nauseum now, that Malik Willis is going to get in there one way or the other because he needs the reps. He needs to start to grow. This team is 0-2 and just got their faces kicked in.
Yes,
all right,
a lot of pressure on everybody on this roster now.
It just doesn't make sense. They're going to need to lose a few more games before they make the switch, I think, because Tannehill is still a guy who can help them win. Again, one of those average to good quarterbacks who has a low floor but a low ceiling as well, in my mind. A bad game from Tannehill, really, when it comes down to it. But in this one, but not enough quite yet to say, okay, we're giving up and going to the rookie, because they're a team that many picked to make the playoffs or maybe even win the division.
Of course, the one seed in the AFC last year. So expectations from that alone are high. They lose a close playoff game due to a mistake by Ryan Tannehill. So sour taste, right? We got that. But really, I think this Malik Willis situation is a lot different than the Steelers, which we talked about earlier. Malik Willis is more the Trey Lance type quarterback where he needs to sit for a year. He's got to work on passing concepts. He's got to work on throws, right? The guy's an amazing runner. He's really a running back at quarterback, which is going to be really beneficial down the road. But it's not like, if the people in Tennessee who are calling his name, you got to be completely out of it because Tennessee is too good on paper based on what we know last year. They're too good to just give up the whole season right now. And 0-2 is not the end of the world, right? And getting blown out at Buffalo is not the end of the world. Really, the one thing I worry about with Tennessee is that they're receiving. They don't really have any receiving threats.
Yep.
Trayvon Burks from Arkansas comes over. They ship A.J. Brown out. But I think the balance of the team really was A.J. Brown. Defenses didn't know, should we focus on A.J. Brown and play back and let Derrick Henry get a couple yards up front, or should we bring up the defense and play Derrick Henry? That, it was probably different week by week as far as defensive game plan, but now it's just, we focus on Derrick Henry, and the Bills did exactly that, and Tennessee had no other answers.
Yeah, I mean, Robert Woods had a few catches in this game, to keep them in it, made big plays when he caught the ball, yards after catch. That's what he does. He's speedy. Burks, he made a few catches too, but like you said, in the end of the day, I think it was more this Bills defense is that good, that intense, that in your face, that yes, the receivers, they're good. They're not great. None of them, right? Woods as your number 1 is not great. A rookie as your number 2 is not great. When it's Treylon Burks and not like some superstar, Derrick Henry contained, and this team doesn't score. That's how it works for them, period, right? If you can contain Derrick Henry, they're not going to score.
And really, Buffalo's coaching on defense is just amazing.
Insane.
I mean, they got a rookie starting, Christian Benford, from Mississippi, correct?
Yep.
And he's playing well. I mean, I saw him push off a fullback,
Yes.
and tackle Derrick Henry. And this is his second NFL game. Tackled Derrick Henry for a loss.
Loss.
And
he's a tiny guy. He's not like a big cornerback.
Right, right.
Yeah. And Dane Jackson, being in the CB1 role, he had a scary injury in this game. Luckily, he's okay.
7th round pick.
Was able to walk out. Right. Dane Jackson, 7th round pick. Kaiir Elam rotating with Benford, also a rookie 1st round pick, though. And he's looked very good as well, not allowing a lot of separation, not allowing big plays. It's been this Bills backfield. And again, give credit where it's due. The safeties of Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer make life easier for those cornerbacks as well.
Sure.
And
it's more of a system than it is putting it all on one person.
By God, though, please, NFL, continue to not hire Leslie Frazier as a head coach. Why he hasn't been a head coach the last 2 years is blowing my mind when he's had the number 1 defense in the league pretty much both years without anything spectacular happening, right? These are just consistent play, getting the best out of every player on that roster. Leslie Frazier should be a head coach, period. But that's okay, NFL. I don't know. Maybe he interviews terribly and you're just like,
oh, maybe he
don't want to hire him.
Maybe he got his coach money years ago. Maybe he's done with that.
He should be a head coach.
Some people are better coordinators. They're comfortable with that.
That's great.
Role.
And he's doing an amazing job. And the Bills would love to keep him, and
the Bills played lights out on all phases.
Yes.
Even the special team, even the punter got him 2 turnovers.
You punt and you get 3 points.
I mean, yeah, that's just really impressive game from
completely.
If you're not ready to play the Bills right now, you're in big trouble. And that's exactly what happened to Tennessee is the game got away from them and the Bills will just run away because they're just so on fire.
Yes.
This is rolling over from last year. Josh Allen now most consecutive games with 4 total touchdowns. This was on Get Up ESPN. Most consecutive games with 4 total touchdowns in history. Only behind
Peyton Manning.
4. He's had 4 games behind Peyton Manning, right? Only Peyton Manning.
Consecutive, and this is a stretch and now he's going to play Miami, who he's absolutely owned. So I mean, it's a good position to be in if you're Josh Allen. But this Buffalo Bills team, let's remember the question marks coming in here. No Ed Oliver. Okay, you got Tim Settle. Oh wait, no Tim Settle. So now you've got 2 defensive linemen out. You're going to your backups of the backups there, and they've showed up and played out too. Oh, what about on offense? No Gabe Davis. Who the heck is your number 2 receiver? Jake Kumro is your number 2 guy?
Right.
Oh, the defense is going to
Gabe
target
Davis
that.
I thought would hurt them.
And look at that. Stephon Diggs just blows the freaking roof off the place, and Kumro had a couple of big catches too. But you think about what this team is going to be when it is at full strength, if it ever is. And the other injuries that happened throughout this game, they were able to overcome as well. Center Mitch Morse goes down. He comes back in later, but man, did they played well when he was out. They were able to overcome. They haven't been at full strength, and it's still the Buffalo Bills about 3 steps down and the rest of the NFL right now. It's not even close right now. And I know I'm a Bills fan saying that, but I challenge you to give me any point that shows otherwise. And when I picked this game as my pick of the week, I said that. The Bills are -10, but they're the best team in the NFL hands down, and they should win this big. And they did.
Yeah, a lot of that is Josh Allen just playing lights out.
Just unbelievable.
They targeted 11 different players with a pass. So they're really spreading the ball around with Gabe Davis out. The fullback had a nice play.
For the touchdown.
The third string
My
tight
guy,
end.
Reggie
Third
Gilliam.
string tight end had a catch. You know what I mean? Like everyone gets a catch.
Back when we started podcasting, Reggie Gilliam was the guy I hitched my wagon to and said early on when the Bills still had Pat DeMarco, this undrafted kid is making the roster over Pat DeMarco. And everybody thought I was crazy. Like, no, he's not going to make the roster. No, maybe he'll make the practice squad. No, he's going to be your active guy. And sure enough, he did. And he's done lots of great things as Buffalo Bill. Recently got a contract extension too. And it was just great to see him score in this game. And even Josh Allen said, when asked, what was your favorite touchdown in this game? It wasn't the big deep pass to Stephon Diggs. It was the pass to the
toss.
So,
it was like a 1-yard pass.
Right. Yeah. For a little short pass, but really it was Gilliam making the play and running around and finding the end zone. And it was a lot of fun to watch. This team is just fun.
The team is fun, and they're just right now they're unstoppable.
Threats, the Von Miller effect, everything he's done for that defense, and
They're deep at the defensive line now. I mean, that's obvious, and they're only going to get better, in my opinion. But when will they run out of gas? Can you carry this momentum throughout a whole season?
March. That's when they'll run out of. Yes, I think that they're going to have to. Right. That's the challenge of the coaching staff now, especially. We're going into a big divisional game against Miami this week, a game that I'll be at, by the way. But the big divisional game now this will show, okay, coaching staff, how are you able to keep this team ready and not let it get to their head that they're that much better than any other team in the NFL right now? Because that's when you become vulnerable. That's when you are going to, weaken instead of maintain your energy, your momentum going forward. You cannot let it get to your head and say, okay, we're this good. You have to continue to prepare for every game the way you have been because it's been working. You have to continue to be next man up mentality because it's working, and I think that Sean McDermott has proven he can do that through these first couple of games. But that challenge only gets harder as the year goes on, and you're still really good, right? Even if they're not undefeated, but they're 10-2, coasting into the playoffs, they're going to say, okay, we have to be ready and focus one game at a time and continue this momentum so that we're ready to do it going into the playoffs when it really, really counts going on that Super Bowl run. But this team is that good, and I hope they don't run out of gas until March when it's all said and done and you've already celebrated the Super Bowl victory.
Right, and we're going to see the real test. I mean, teams know they're going to have to be on their A game when they play Buffalo, so the challenge will get tougher and tougher, which will make Buffalo stronger and stronger. Right now, nobody in the NFL can bet against Josh Allen. He's really the difference maker for the whole team. He's just playing so well right now that he's unstoppable at this point.
Think about this again. I can't understate this again. 3 quarters. He didn't even play a full 3 quarters. He played 2 2/3 of a quarter, not even. And he put up these kind of stats.
Right. And
I've never, ever seen an NFL game where a quarter and a half is left and the bench players are all in.
Right.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, you simply cannot make any mistakes when you play Buffalo because they will embarrass you.
Yeah. Some of my favorite tweets I saw, when is the preseason over? I love that one because it seems like the Bills are still facing teams in the preseason with these scores and the way that they're playing and players on the bench, and it was just an incredible place to be as a Bills fan, but just in football to see this team, even to watch Monday Night Football, ESPN in Buffalo, in that city, the energy around the team, people seeing what the tailgating experience and how hardcore Bills fans are. It's a new look for the NFL, and they're using that to build on their popularity even more, right? The NFL is the biggest thing in sports, period. And they're using this kind of a story to boost their image and give them a little bit more of a fan base. And I'm glad as a Bills fan that the rest of the league finally gets to see what it's like to be, in Buffalo or in the Bills fans' shoes, because we've been through a lot over the years to get to here. And that's what makes us the most hardcore of the fan bases.
Spreads like wildfire. Seems to be a lot more people that are Bills fans now.
Yes, that's right. That's definitely right.
Yes. All right, we got 2 more games to get to. Let's start with Minnesota at Philly, the other Monday night doubleheader. The second part of that. Minnesota takes the loss 24-7. And, I picked Philadelphia just because it's a tough environment. And Philadelphia right now, they just know who they are, right? They know exactly what they're doing. Jalen Hurts played a phenomenal game. And we're only in week 2 here, so I just want to pump the brakes. Is he cemented as a franchise quarterback?
Cemented is tough, but I thought he showed enough last year to show that he was the guy, and they were still questioning him, right? So it's like, what else does he have to prove to you now?
Well, I think the playoffs, he kind of struggled in the passing game.
Yes.
And it cost him the game, really.
Okay, but I'm talking about
you win a Super Bowl
season. Yeah, I think so. I think you can win a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts. I have this team in the NFC Championship game. In fact, this is my NFC Championship matchup here. And in this game, Kirk Cousins had a terrible game, bad game for him. Lots of interceptions, rough. He just didn't look sharp. And those are going to happen for human quarterbacks, not named Josh Allen, right? So, you have a tough game like that, and it looks like, oh, Minnesota's so bad now. Don't write them off. They're still a really good team. They had a rough game against a really good team at home, who was at home, the Eagles. So I do think that Hurts is good enough to take this team where they need to be. What else do you need? He's got the running ability. He uses that. He gets the ball to those excellent receivers you've given him now. They're legitimate.
That's a big part of it. He has
Yeah.
great weapons, right? Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, AJ Brown. That helps a lot. Like, look at Tua right now. With the 6 touchdowns, receivers matter, and I think Philadelphia's doing a great job of giving Hurts the tools he needs to develop, right? Not win, to develop.
Yes.
Now you can win, right? Now he's a 300-yard passer. Now he's a dual threat quarterback. Defenses don't know what to do with this team. They give it to 4 different running backs, and they give it to 8 different receivers. It's tough to defend,
Looking more like Lamar Jackson out there, right? What we would normally expect from a Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and I got tons of respect for Jalen Hurts and his development process, because nobody thought he could turn into an NFL passing quarterback. And he's so far through 2 weeks, he's shown us that. If he can continue that throughout the rest of the season, get this team the division win, get this team a playoff win, he's cemented as the franchise quarterback in Philadelphia. Let's flip it over to the other side, though. The Vikings are down, but not out. I think this is just a hiccup for them. It's a tough environment. Philadelphia is good on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
I still expect Minnesota to bounce back and be a competitive team. But, man, they got pretty beat up in this game.
Yeah. Again, I think a lot of it was on Kirk Cousins. In the end of the game, when they had a couple opportunities to come back and score, they got a turnover. They got the ball in good field position. And what happened was Kirk Cousins chose a bad time to throw a bad pass that ended up getting intercepted. Twice that happened, right? So the momentum was killed big time by those interceptions. And I don't think that's going to happen all the time for Kirk Cousins. It was just, again, a bad game, and that's why you lose. But you use that and say, the next time I got to find a way to keep that momentum going in the right direction and make sure I find the guy. It seemed like he was targeting Jefferson a lot in this game, and that cost him. And when you're doing that, the defense knows that, and they're going to double team him, and they're going to have a safety who's sitting ready to pounce. And that, I think, is part of why he had 3 interceptions in this game. And he's got to learn to trust those other guys too, because Thielen is no write-off, right? He's a good receiver, and he did have to find him a couple times late for bigger plays when they needed it. And Irv Smith, the tight end, can make plays. I mean, they have some playmakers there that he's got to learn to trust more, I think. And that takes time a little bit to find your momentum there. And who wouldn't want to throw it to Justin Jefferson every play?
Right.
It's just not, it didn't work out this time.
Yep, agree, and expect them to bounce back. They're just too talented not to be a competitive team this year. If I feel like if they don't make the playoffs, that's going to be something's wrong there.
Huge.
So, all right, couple more. Let's get to this Trey Lance situation real quick. Let's just touch on this. 49ers win 27-7 with Seattle. Seattle travels to San Francisco for that one. And we saw Jimmy G again.
Yeah, right. Jimmy G getting the opportunity for an unfortunate, event when you lose Trey Lance and he breaks his ankle. It's you knew in the moment that he was done for the season. I mean, you could just see it. And Jimmy G comes in, and all of a sudden, the San Francisco 49ers look like the smartest team in the NFL for having that contingency plan. For keeping Jimmy G. Everybody's like, oh, they're going to trade him. Oh, you can't trade him. Oh, nobody wants him. Oh, you can't even get scraps for him. Oh, now you're stuck paying him. But what happens? Trey Lance, an injury unexpected happens. You have the guy you want, who's been in this offense, who knows what he's doing, who actually looked more high-powered in this offense than Trey Lance. And you would expect that at first because, again, Garoppolo's been there, done that. Trey Lance is learning as he goes. You expect them to win, but build with Trey Lance. Jimmy G, you know exactly what you're getting with him, and he was able to turn it up. I'm sure he had extra energy and momentum going into this, knowing that this is his second opportunity, if you will, to show that, this was a mistake.
He probably wants some more money, right?
Yeah, he's working for that contract. He's a free agent at the end of the year.
Well, I mean, he
Now,
took a
under
pay
this new
cut to
contract.
stay. He took a pay
Yes.
cut to stay with the 49ers, and then week 2, he got to play. Ew,
Yeah.
man.
Could he be the quarterback in Carolina next year? I mean,
a
I
couple
wouldn't
things
I
here
wouldn't
we gotta
deny
get
it.
to. This is a deep topic because we could talk about this for another 2 hours.
Yeah.
But are the 49ers are better with Jimmy G, right? Now they're a Super
Yes.
Bowl contender. Now they're back in the conversation, you know?
Yes. This fits into that category of what we talked about before. They know what they are with Jimmy G. They chose to go with Trey Lance because he had the potential to take them an even bigger step that Jimmy G did not. So you have to go with that young quarterback.
You took Trey Lance at 3. You had to play him. You gotta take your medicine.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Jimmy G, although he's good, and although we're saying yes, he's that guy who can bring them to the level that they're supposed to be, still he couldn't get them over the hump, right? And we had Jimmy G. We saw what he could do. We want to go with Trey Lance. So I don't think they did anything wrong here. And in fact, they're doing everything the right way. Right. And they, again, look like the genius team in the NFL for keeping Jimmy G when everybody thought, oh, he's already dead and gone.
Yeah, and I know they're trying to win the Super Bowl last year. So this makes this conversation really, really difficult. But I thought you should have played Trey Lance late last year because he needs the reps. You invested in him for the future by taking him number 3. He needed the reps last year, but I also understand why you sat him with the intention that he would play this year. It just hurts, you know. But now he's set back. He's already been set back a year. Now he's going to be set back 2 years. My personal opinion is I just don't think we ever see Trey Lance become a franchise-style quarterback because this development time is so crucial. And he just doesn't get it. He's not going to get that. You know what I mean? He's not going to be able to adjust to the speed of the game until year 3.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a huge disadvantage. You know, I think he'll certainly play year 3 as long as he heals fine. But I think he'll be the starter next year. But then you got to play well immediately.
Right, because your contract is up, right?
Your
it's only a 5-year.
Yep, they'll likely decline the option.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as you decline the option, the relationship's broken. So there's no way he becomes, a franchise quarterback for San Francisco.
That's tough. That's a tough position to be in. They'll have to figure it out really fast in year 3. You're right.
And I just don't see it because that's going to be a development year for him, though. You know what I mean?
His first
so really,
starting
year 4, it's really going to be your real shot at, I'm developed.
Free agent year 4, assuming they don't pick up the option. Right. Yeah.
No, I just don't see it. I think Trey Lance is, is it his fault? Is it the organization's fault? We'll debate that for years, but this is the road that they're going to go down now. It's going to be ugly. The relationship between the organization and Trey Lance, and I'm not blaming anybody from the organization. It's just bad luck, really. But it's kind of the risk you take when you take a quarterback who needs development time, somebody who plays at North Dakota State, who has, only a limited number of snaps as a Division 1 or 2 or quarterback or, prospect. That's the risk you take, and unfortunately, it went the other way this time, right? So that hurts. All right, so Seattle, they get their butts kicked. I think they forgot.
Yeah.
There's more than just one game every year.
Tough matchup for them because San Francisco's defense is really good, but agreed that this is more of the Seattle team that we thought we were getting in the NFL this year, and that last week they had just the energy of facing their former quarterback and they were home opener and all of that. But yeah, it wasn't enough to stay competitive in this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a sad one. But let's move on to our last game here. It's been a marathon, so thanks for sticking around. Chicago at Green Bay. Chicago takes the loss for the 7th straight time against the Packers. Again, it's a primetime game, which I guess they're waiting for that moment where Chicago actually pulls off the upset, but it just keeps not happening. But a couple things here is Aaron Rodgers making it work, right, with this young receiving core, the 2 good running backs. Good, I think they're playing good defense. But yeah, it is kind of fun to watch Aaron Rodgers work with these journeyman receivers and these young receivers, right? Allen Lazard comes back. I think that helped them.
Yes, big time, I thought.
But still, he's the only guy. Randall Cobb, you could argue they have there's some stability in the relationship there and the timing and things like that. But besides that, it's all new. But getting people more involved. Sammy Watkins gets involved, right? Christian Watson gets involved. They focused on drops, right? Had a lot of drops week 1, didn't have a lot of drops this week. So looks like they can make something work here. Romeo Dubes getting involved, right? But they're spreading the ball around evenly, and that's going to be an advantage, right? And Aaron Rodgers has that capability. So I think making it work. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Chicago is still not what I would consider top competition for the Green Bay Packers. So I'm not ready to call this the measuring stick game of where the Packers are at. But it certainly helped that this was the momentum and the team that they want to be now. Getting involved more with the run is huge. That's what they're going to be moving forward, regardless of if you have Aaron Rodgers or not. The weapons they have were able to get utilized, as you said, and the Bears just weren't able to capitalize on their situations to an extent. I do think the refs kind of screwed them a couple times with did they break the plane of the goal? I thought it was a touchdown. They would have stayed in the game. Now, maybe I'm biased because, again, I bet the Bears +10, and that would have covered here, So I think that even if they had been given those opportunities, it still would have been in the Packers' favor, but it would have looked a lot better in terms of how competitive the actual game was. So it wasn't a runaway by Green Bay, but they were able to do what they needed to stop the Bears at the goal line, quote unquote. They did actually stop them, but whether it was in or not is debatable. And to put the knee on the throat at the end of the game and run out the clock and score, a field goal to just end the game at that point, right? You're up by multiple scores, not just 1 or 2, but 17 points. So they backed them into a corner. They did what they had to do, and I think a lot of that is the leadership of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I agree. And from the Bears side, I just don't know what's happening here. Justin Fields 11 passing attempts, 7 completions.
Almost as many passes as he had runs, 8 running attempts.
I mean, 27 rushing attempts, right? Yeah.
But they're trying to rely on their star player too, David Montgomery.
Sure.
Right? Their star player, running back, right?
But is Justin Fields, are we there yet now? We're there, right?
Yes, but they have the worst receiving core in the NFL, I would argue, right? Your number 1 is Mooney, right? Like what? That's your number 1 guy, right? And St. Brown for them, brother of
but Mooney,
Detroit St. Brown,
1 catch, -4 yards. I mean,
yeah, and even
I don't know what's going on.
St. Brown,
here.
2 catches, 39 yards. They don't have the guys to throw to. I would rather have the Packers receivers 100 times over than this Bears receivers, right? And they were still in the game saying all that.
Right.
We know what they do, right?
We're talking about Jalen Hurts, talking about Tua. Justin Fields getting a raw deal here.
Yeah,
you got to get this guy some weapons or something. You give him something to help him with development, right?
Yeah,
especially because now you're seeing flashes. I think this guy can play. You know what I mean? Just you want to see the coaching.
Someone's got to give.
They went with a defensive coach. Yeah, just something's got to change there. It's just not working. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's frustrating. Anyway, thank you for sticking with us through the marathon. 2 hours this evening. Lots to unpack this week. There's lots of storylines,
so much going on.
Tons of games. It's really fun. Happy to be a part of it. And be sure to check us out every Tuesday and Thursday. We are off a little bit this week due to the doubleheader on Monday, but we'll be back on track every Tuesday, Thursday, bringing you the recap and then our Sunday preview. Be sure to check in on our link tree. Links in the description. Check our Twitter. Links always in the bio at our social media. Tune
YouTube, in. Subscribe on YouTube.
Yep, subscribe on YouTube. Good stuff. Growing every day. So appreciate everyone's support, and we'll see you later this week.
Toss your hat in the ring.